Hey, hey, hey! Think we are live again. Amanda Young, you were first. Nicely done there, because I actually had scheduled it for another 12 minutes time, so you jumped in there pretty quick. Nicely done. Just waiting on Riley, who's gone off for a drink, so he shouldn't be too much longer. But he did actually want me to actually get something ready for him. So I don't know what to do. I've just got YouTube up and ready to go. So let's put a little bit of Glowbusters 2 on for the time being. Let's see what they've got.
Great.
Right.
You were back immediately
Apparently,
as I started playing Glowbusters. Pretty good stuff. Yeah, we're live now, mate. We're live.
Okay. When you say you were playing Glowbusters, what do you mean?
Well, I just put Glowbusters 2 on just to stream a little whilst I waited for you to get back from grabbing your drink.
Yeah, I'm having a sandwich as well.
You didn't tell me that. Sandwich at this time of night?
I smoked a sandwich. I'm hungry.
Do you know you're not supposed to eat after 6 o'clock?
Yeah, fuck that. There's a lot of things that you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to tell children that gravity's a force either, but that happens.
So what have you got for us, Riley? Because you asked me something in the last stream.
Do you want to share screens and share sounds?
Me share my screens and your sound. Have you got a video you want me to play? And I'll get it up.
You got the window open.
Sleeping Warrior. Right, let me find the video. Ay. Now, it was from 2015. That was a long time ago, mate. I'm going to have to go to the oldest first, I would imagine.
Look at the title as well.
What's it called?
Have you shut the window down? You had it open a minute ago.
Yeah, I shut it down.
All right, hang on. It'll be in history.
Oh, God. Can you not remember what it was called?
Flat Earth, hey, I finally found that curvature.
Right, okay. I finally found... There we go, let's see. That should bring it up. Hey, I finally found that curvature. Right, I got the video. Right, so, you said from 3 minutes, did you say?
Yeah, and for the benefit of those watching,
yeah,
just confirm that we've had absolutely no communications about this whatsoever. This happened literally as a result of your previous hangout where you were talking about where's Wally. I've not come across him before.
I saw this observation maybe a year and a half ago or something like that, 2 years ago. It was a long time ago, and it was one of these that we discussed for like a few hours, and then it was just put to the back burner, and I haven't spoken to you about this since. In fact, like I say, I mean, when you showed me the image, I thought, I've seen this before, but bloody hell, that was a long time ago. So, right, did you want me to share screens and sounds, did you say?
Yeah, go on.
Share screens with the sound.
Now, anyway, good.
So, now you should be able to see this, right? Okay, so what are you after from this?
So, I saw, obviously, your previous hangout where you had me as well. Now, this is for a long time in my own journey.
Hang on, you're going all... I can't hear you, mate. You're waffling in and out.
No, sorry, I had my own sound playing in the background. Is that better?
Yeah, go on.
Alright, so this video came out in 2000 and... What was the date it came out in?
A long time ago. Let me get it back up again. Have a look. So this was the 3rd of December 2017, so 3 years ago, in actual fact. Wow, I can't believe it's been that long. 3 years ago.
This was taken back in the day when we first did the Blackpool Tower observation from Hoylake, and I went back in different days in different weather conditions to see what I could see. And this is the first time I ever got evidence that supported curvature of the Earth. Now, I could have sat on this and I could have just held it back and not released it, but I released it because, I'll be honest, it bugged me that I didn't have an explanation for it at the time. Now, there's a little tugboat in the foreground, the middle ground. That little tugboat's not part of the boat in the background. That's separate.
Yeah.
I wanted, in one sense, this is where, not complacency, but this is where Yeah, I guess it's complacency where you just think that you're never going to learn something new. Now, I've learned something today because when I saw that boat, I got my own answer to my own query of why the boat looks the way it does. Because when I first Ranty, I knew it was going to be some kind of effect, right? And
Can you try and keep your mouth next to the mic as well? Because you just, like I say, you fade in and out.
it's because I've got my gain turned a bit low. Is that better?
Right, go on.
I always wanted to know what was the cause of what I was looking at because this boat, if you just move your cursor out of the way a little bit, you.
It's your cursor, mate.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's my one.
I wanted to know the explanation because I didn't have an explanation for this, and it did look like Earth curve at the time. I remember looking at it and thinking, "Holy fuck, why is that looking like that?" And I didn't have an explanation. I wanted to know what it was. You've just brought up a very similar looking ship with them two H things that are on the deck of the boat, and I thought maybe that is the reason why I could see what looked like the Earth curve. And it's been stuck in the back of my head since that time because I couldn't explain this. I didn't know why this boat looked like it was behind the Earth's curve, or behind some curve of the Earth. And obviously, I saw you presenting that boat. And what I want you to do, Ranty, if you don't mind, see if when you put your horizon in, see if the boat is on screen now. I mean, I can see evidence of mirroring right now, but I want you to see whether or not it would account for the fact that there's a boat behind the mirroring and see whether or not it explains it because this has bugged me for years. I couldn't explain why this boat appears to be behind the curve, but look at the boat in the middle ground, that little tugboat thing.
Yeah.
He's behind the curve, so he's closer than the Mirage starts,
Yeah.
and the boat in the background is obviously behind the Mirage. And it really confused me because I couldn't explain this and I didn't know why. So just basically do what you just did with that other.
Okay, so firstly, let's see if we can't get up Google Earth here. I need to find out the location first because I need to understand the topography of the land underneath the water.
I know exactly where it was. I remember where it was because I remember I stopped the car when I saw it. I stopped the car and I was like, "What the fuck?"
Okay, I have a feeling that you were probably looking over the. You get these little channels that the boats can go through, so that it's deeper in those areas. So you get this shallow area, and then you'll get like a channel. So here we have the wind turbines that are actually put in for.
I'm on about the effects of the Mirage that you were putting.
Yeah. But also, it looks to me like there's a physical hump there as well. I mean, I haven't seen the boat yet because you haven't told me what the boat was called.
Well, I don't know what the boat was called, but it's the same style boat as that one that you had on screen. With that H frame that's on the deck.
So, you were in Hoylake. Do you know whereabouts in Hoylake you were?
Yeah, if you go to 2 minutes and 10 seconds on that video, you can see where I am.
Right. 2 minutes and 10.
We may have to go back a little bit more. Let's just make sure that it is. Yeah, just play from 2:10.
Yeah,
you'll see it.
Does it tell you where you are?
Yeah, you'll see it. You'll see it. You'll recognize. You might not recognize it.
There's a lot more turbines on the horizon than what was here last time. So this was essentially done to just document how many turbines there were, because they've put more up since I was last here. A lot more. But I saw this structure in the background, so I zoom in on it to see what it was, just so I could reference it later on.
Doesn't say where it is. You don't say where you are.
Zoom out. There we go. It's at 2:01. Sorry, you'd gone a bit too far. I must have finished watching it. 2:01. Yeah, bear in mind, guys, this has been done on the fly. We haven't.
So this is the beginning of the.
Oh right, okay. So you're at the far end, aren't you?
Yeah, the very far end, right at the beginning of the beach.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And the tide's out at this point as well, so I think it's on its way. Well, I'm presuming it's on its way back in.
Do you know it's a funny thing? I actually went to that location first, and I've actually got a line of sight at the end of that thing too. It's around here, isn't it?
No, I think it's the next bit up. Go where it says. See where it says Stanley Road.
Well, I'll tell you what.
It's there. You've got your stop.
Here.
You got your hand is right. That road that's below your hand there.
Yeah. There. Oh, yeah, I see it. Yeah, I can see the actual little outcrop now. Yeah, I see. Right, okay, so let's get this line of sight in. Let's get some workings out here. So
I couldn't tell you what turbine it was, but
it looks to me as if you're, well, I'd have to check, but it looks like you're looking across sort of this direction.
that's right. Yeah, one of them turbines. Yeah.
In fact, it could be.
Going to be tunneling.
It could actually be these three on the end, because you've got one in the foreground, one just behind it, and then you've got a one further to the right. So that's what it looks like to me. It looks like you're looking in that direction. So, oh God. Right. So that's the direction that I think you're looking in. Let's go back to the video, just to confirm that. So let's play a tad.
This video's bugged me ever since.
I did not know what I was about to see. This is done live. And what I want to show you is.
Oh no, it isn't. Actually.
At this point, my views were, oh my God, there's a lot more turbines on the horizon than what was here last time. So this was essentially done to just document how many turbines there were, because they've put more up since I was last here.
A lot more. To have frozen my screen. There we go. Finally, it decided to stop. So. Wow. Okay. So.
Line of sight just by looking at that street sign there.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do now. So. Okay, so we're looking just dead ahead, basically, from Stanley Road, right? Okay, so let's go back again and let's move this across. So
I don't think it's how accurate this is.
Well, whatever, you're looking across. I would say something like this, that sort of direction, just straight down, straight out, something like that.
Zoom in and let's see whether that's the continuation of that Stanley Road or not. I agree with you, it's something like that.
Right, so where's the outcrop?
You're not in the, your base is moved, it's not in the right.
There's Stanley Road.
Yes.
So let's find a heading from that. So the heading for that is 334.78. Right, here we go. It's been a while since we've done something like this. Right, 334.78. So what's bugging you about this, by the way? The fact that you think that some of it could be hidden to Earth curve?
What's bugging me is that I've never had closure on why it looks like it's behind Earth curve. I knew it was an optical effect, a refractive effect, or whatever effect, but I mean, obviously, for me, it's not Earth curve, but it did look like Earth curve. If somebody like Miles Delia Davis would have gone back on that day and seen that, he would have immediately come back with, that's Earth curve, because it looks like Earth curve. But what I realised is that there's a mirage in the picture, which I didn't realise back then. And when I saw you doing what you did with What's-His-Face, Where's Wally, I want you to do that same.
Beginning of the clip.
Right, let me take you off that volume so we can't hear. So we need to try and decide if it's... So it's beyond the turbines then. This boat is beyond the turbines, right? It's clear. Yes. It's clear that it's beyond those furthest turbines.
Francis, just play it a bit further, because that tugboat in the middle ground is touching that turbine.
Okay.
So the boat in the middle ground, it's kind of like probably double the distance. Maybe not double, but it's significantly further than that first tugboat.
Right. Okay. So let's look at the distance. So we're looking at least 9 miles then. So if we live on a globe, according to them...
See, 9 miles deals with the tugboat in the middle ground. It doesn't deal with the thing in the background.
Yeah, I'm looking for something that's beyond the furthest turbine. So the distance to just past the furthest turbine is 9 miles.
Yeah, and there's your 3 turbines. That's probably the line of sight there.
Okay. So we need to find the channel that these boats will navigate. And
there's the 2 white lines there, the channel lines. Two white lines there.
This white line?
Yeah, it'll be one of them lines. Presumably that top one.
Yeah, you're probably right there, and I wouldn't disagree with that. So let's extend that to the line and see how far that is then. So let's move that over.
Turn out to Roxanne Glen in chat.
There we go. So there's your line of sight.
Yeah, and that cargo ship's probably come out of the bay, because that looks like what I'm looking at.
So let's have a look at the property.
It's a cargo ship.
Measurements. So we're looking at 16.8 miles, right? As a cursory look, I'm I've been to this location, so let's just go back to your video and just sort of try and gauge an idea. Don't forget these are the flats.
Well, the tides. We're guessing at the tides, but I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to say you're probably about 30 feet above the water.
I'm going to suggest 30 feet.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. Just down to the bottom there, I mean, yeah, 30 feet seems about fair. Yeah, so let's do the curve calcs.
That's a really good picture for perspective as well, because that bloke, call him, say, 6 foot, 5.5 foot, whatever height he is. Notice how below the horizon he is. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just bear that in mind, because he thinks that the horizon's at eye level and everything below it is whatever. But that guy is below the horizon. So anyway, 30. Go with
30 feet and 16.8 miles. Right. Okay. So let's put those details in. It's been a while since we've done this, mate, hasn't it?
What was the mileage?
Let me just put it in here so everyone can see. So we're going to use not Miles Davis's, Mick West's 16.8 miles, and we're going to give ourselves a 30-foot observer height. Okay, so 50 feet should be hidden, right? Which I'm going to say is probably about half of that boat. You know, because it looks like it's quite a substantial boat. It has to be said.
Yeah, it's a cargo ship.
Yeah, and they're typically what, 100 feet or so.
No way. I don't think they're as big as 100 feet. Maybe say 100.
We can go on the big side here. You say you don't know what this boat's called though.
Somebody did identify it back in the day, but I can't remember what it was called. But it is one of the cargo ships coming out of Liverpool Bay. I do know that, and I'm happy that it is a cargo ship because someone showed it. Them H's are the cranes that are on the deck. Basically, Ranty, that thing that you just did with Where's Wally?
Yeah.
The ship that you used is the same style ship that you're looking at there.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is use that thing that you just used on Where's Wally on that.
Well, I would be able to if I knew what the name of the boat was.
I don't know, man. Just use it as a guide, just because I can see that there's a mirroring line in that picture there, which I didn't see beforehand. So basically, what I want you to do is snip out that picture of that boat, put your line in for where the mirroring starts, and then see does it match up the way you did with this perspective or the scaling that you did with that Where's Wally thing. That explains where the rest of the boat is. And for me, it's bugged me for the longest of times because I just didn't know why I couldn't see the rest of the boat. And now I realise it's because there's a mirage effect going on, and I didn't spot it back then. But I mean, you try telling a baller that that's not curvature, right? Back then, and I was like, on my journey, right at the beginning.
Well, we looked at it for about, I would say, a couple of hours. I remember at the time, because you were flummoxed over it, and to be honest, I mean, I was flummoxed over it too, because, back then when we first got this, before we understood optics, this is what we saw. We saw, okay, what's going on here then? Why is the sky repeating down on itself? Yeah. I mean, it's like if the hull was here. So let's, I mean, I don't know what this boat looks like. So it's like I can't really.
Well, Ranty, just use as a. You can tell that we're not looking at that perfectly flat on, but okay. We'll look at the one that look at the Where's Wally one, like you've just done. It's the same style ship.
Okay, fair enough. So obviously we've got. Hang on, let me.
It's not that far off that angle either, to be honest.
Right. So. There's a bit of brightness and contrast just changed on Where's Wally's image so that we can just see this a little bit better. But as you say, I mean, let's bring that out and let's bring this over here.
It's not as if we've got better to do on a Sunday night at midnight, is it?
That's true. That's true. Actually, you're right. It is a very similar image to this in actual fact. I hadn't realised what you was actually saying at the time, but now that you've actually pointed it out, yeah, I can see why you're thinking that because it is damn near the same frigging boat, isn't it? Sorry.
Very similar.
Yeah, that's.
Because I don't mind it being a little bit out, but what I want to do is just see does the line across the middle account for the height the missing or the perception of missing height? Because if it does, then that to me is a massive explanation because, like I say, Ranty, this is stuck in the back of my mind for years. It's like I couldn't explain this at the time, and I just didn't have the depth in my own journey to work it out. And now, when I watched you doing it on the horizon, it was like, oh my god, that's a eureka moment for me because that explains where the rest of the fucking boat's gone.
To be honest, it is. It's like it's literally like on the same. It's the same sort of boat, isn't it? Exactly. So I mean, they could be brothers and sisters. So
Yeah. I mean, where was that boat taken from? Where's Wally was using it?
oh, that's like in I don't know, South Africa or something. I suppose it's where Harry Baird lives.
They're all very similar. They've all got cranes on them for picking up them containers, or for I'm not quite sure what they use the cranes for. I don't even know that the cranes. That's what I got told they were, so they might not even be cranes.
Right. So scale to width on the actual cranes. Obviously, we don't know if it's the same bloody boat, but it's similar boat, so we can get a rough comparison. That's for sure.
It's very similar on the angle as well.
Yeah. So top of that boat, your boat is there. Top of that boat is there, and let's see whether or not that lines up with the horizon.
Doesn't it almost?
Pretty
It's
much.
Not,
Pretty much.
it's not dead straight that line, but it's not far off it. But the point I wanted to demonstrate
Well,
was
it is because what you're doing, you're looking at this over here, which is the other part of the image. This is another image. There's your image here.
yeah.
That's your horizon, and that's that horizon. So yeah,
So-
I mean, it is all hidden. If it's the same design of boat, then and it looks the same design.
Oh, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just like I say, it's just a bloody. Where's Wally doesn't understand that this effect happens all the time.
Hey, listen. To be honest, mate, I've only when I watched your video then with Where's Wally, I was sat in like, literally in bed. I had my earphones plugged in so that I wasn't like interrupting anybody or disturbing anybody, and I was watching it and I was thinking, holy shit, that's the reason why the boat couldn't be seen at Hoy Lake. So I was like, oh my god, Ranty, you've actually I've learned something from you, Ranty, today.
Oh, I am. I feel. I feel honoured. I feel.
Do you know what? I feel like we need to have a bromance moment when we have a hug.
Well, you're borrowing my P1000 anyway, aren't you? So
Yeah, so that's a compliment of when Nathan says something like you can't have it all with well, what's it? You can't have it all with compliments and love or whatever he says, and he gives you a couple of attacks. Well,
yeah.
it's like not like that on this one. It's like I was sat in bed literally watching it, and I was like, holy fuck, that's why my boat's missing on the horizon. And it did. I mean, if you just go back to that clip and play from 3 minutes for the next say 25 seconds, 3 minutes up to say 3:25. You'll see why it looks like it's Earth curve, and I never had an explanation for it. I couldn't get my head around it. I didn't understand what was going on, and now I do. Yeah,
There's a channel that I shouted out today. If you want to have a look on the.
Well, and it's this, Ranty, that there's cresting waves across a particular obvious line across the top of the picture. There looks like there's a bit of a Fata Bromosa mirage as well there. I'm not saying there definitely is, but the cresting waves all happen to be on the same line. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can. And like I say, I mean, a lot of this is the sky repeating down over. The sky blocks out so much. The sky blockage is just incredible, and the mirage of the sky is just incredible. What it can hide is unbelievable. We see this all the time.
All is just deny. They look at that and go, yeah, it's obviously Earth curve. Yeah, is it though? Is it really though? Because there are other explanations. Maybe we didn't know them in 2016 or whatever year it was.
Yeah.
But looking back on it after we've looked into these things many times, and to be fair, you've looked into this particular aspect more than I have. But you're right. It's reflecting back on it. So, I mean, look at the whole. Not the whole. I don't know what the names of the ships are, but the bridge. I think the part of the ship's the bridge.
Well, going back to your image. This is your image, and these are identical. They both. These two images here on the left and the right, the boats are, I would say, are almost an identical match. I think they're the ones that actually put the actual bases of the wind turbines in. I think they actually operate them. That's why they're so big with these like cranes on. I could be wrong, but I think that's what they are, the big boats. But in both of these images, the one that Where's Wally was using on the right, where he's saying, yeah, it's behind Earth curvature, and your one that you wanted an answer to, well, I'll just remove your image and I'll get rid of it, and I'll put it up there. So it's up there, it's out of the way now. This is what the boat looks like in its entirety when you've just got a clear line of sight to it. So the reason that we've compared this is we've scaled the front of the boat to the horizon. And we've done it by the width as well. And in all three cases, the two that are hidden are just hidden by an atmospheric effect that causes the sky to repeat down over it and block things out. You can see that in this image because that's all of the boat. And
I think demonstrates
this is all of the boat just hidden behind atmosphere. This is all of the boat just hidden behind atmosphere. This is all of the boat. You just see it, and it's the same scale.
Ranty, just go to my video and show the title of it.
Sure. Now let's go back to...
Because what this demonstrates is that even somebody that's critical of the like a flat earther or a ball skeptic or whatever phrase or whatever label you want to ascribe to me, somebody that's critical of the ball has presented evidence that supports curvature. It does. On face value, it does support curvature. I didn't have the explanation for why I could see what I was seeing. And as it says there, I've done this observation many, many times and never found any evidence to support curvature. However, this time I finally got some evidence, apparent evidence, not actual evidence of curvature, but it did feel like curvature at the time. And I was looking at it and I really had to scratch deep there into my soul to work out, was this curve I was looking at? Everything told me it wasn't. Even though I didn't have the explanation, I was still able to say that that's not curve, even though I didn't know what it was. So what this demonstrates is that even when it looks like it might be, it doesn't mean it actually is. So in other words, there's an explanation for everything. You just got to work at it, and it's took years to get to this point, and I've only just got to this point now.
Well, this was 3 years ago, and we're in January, so this is 37 months later, and you finally got an answer. And to be honest, I didn't understand what you was trying to make me do when you was asking me about this image, because I thought you had an image of the original boat, but you're right.
No,
it's the same. It's the same design of the same boat, so you can pretty much use them for scale.
There was somebody that identified it. I don't remember what the name of it was now. Obviously, it was years ago, but I'm sure if we went back, I don't know whether you could go back in time to see what boats were travelling on them days on the tracking devices, but. It's probably in the comments, but the point is, even somebody that's like, I mean, I consider myself to be like experienced in this argument, maybe not veteran, but I'm not far off veteran, but I've been around long enough now to have seen pretty much everything. Yet this is always stuck in the back of my mind as, yeah, but I can't explain this boat. Now, if ever I was to be a baller, this would be my own evidence to support curve, because I would argue this against flat earthers and say, look, this is clearly Earth curve. What's the explanation? And there is no obvious explanation. It fucking looks like Earth curve. But now, when I saw you doing Where's Wally and I saw that particular boat and then I realised and I was like, oh my god, that's not curvature at all. So maybe I should go and retitle that video and not call it Earth curve.
Yeah.
Hey, I've not found the Earth curve. It's actually Mirage, because Ranty, do me a favour, zoom in on the the bridge of the boat. Look at the reflection. Yeah. You had it in paint.
Yeah. Hang on, let me bring this up. So
look at the bridge of the boat. You can see that there's features that are being mirrored underneath the boat.
Here, there, yeah. You can see the stretch already.
On the right hand side, there's some kind of black shadow thing that's being reflected underneath itself. I'm not sure what. Yeah, that part of the bridge. Yeah. That there is being reflected underneath itself. So if that reflection continues across the image, across those stanchions, that's not actually height of the stanchion, because it looks stretched.
I think it's a little lower than that, to be honest. But I could be wrong. It may be slightly higher, but I think all we're demonstrating here is that there should be a hull here. That's all we're basically what's been demonstrated in this.
There should be a cargo deck. We should be looking at a cargo deck with containers on it, or maybe not containers if it's empty. But the point is, we should be looking at somewhere that tells us there's a boat there, right? And do you know what, Ranty? At the time, I thought it was some kind of structure to do with the turbines. I didn't realise it was actually a boat.
So this is very crude, and it's probably not to scale. So you're gonna have to bear with me, guys. But essentially, this is what we should be seeing. We should be seeing this sort of like deck. This decking that you can see on this image here. So if we go over to this, you can see that the decking is here. Just bear with me. So yeah, you should see this sort of. You can see the decking on the boat here.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where the decking is on the boat here, and essentially we should be seeing that roughly in this location here, but we can't. We can't see it because it's like the sky is just.
Do you know what's what's racing through my mind right now is Skunk Bay. If you were to look at that boat on Skunk Bay over the whole time lapse of the day and it hadn't moved, you'd be watching that boat stretching and shrinking, distorting her to all hell and back. But then there's times when you see that inferior mirage mirroring the bottom half of the boat, and it would be mirroring it out, and it would appear to be floaty or it would appear to be reflected. But either way, you're getting that mirage at times throughout the day on that Skunk Bay footage. We're looking at one still of a continuous loop of time during the day, and on this one occasion, at this one segment in time, it appears to look like it's Earth curve, and it's like, oh my god. I mean, like I said, this stuck in my mind for months and months afterwards. And when I saw you doing it with Where's Wally, I was just like, there's the answer. That's why my cargo ship's not showing the way it should.
Well, I want to go back to this point here, because I did actually point out in the start of my last video, which was against Where's Wally, that we have a llama on the left and we have a camel on the right. Now, Where's Wally used two completely different boats that look nothing alike. They look nothing alike. So what we're doing here, I just want to sort of like put this caveat out here, is that we are actually using boats that look very similar in all, but you could say the brothers and sisters. They are that identical. I mean,
these are two camels of the same family, right? They're not camels and llamas. They're camels and...
Yeah, the camels that are closely related, you know, like siblings, right?
And what else this reminds me of? Do you remember when it was either Wolfie or... I can't remember who it was, but there was somebody that had a boat passing in the background with another cargo ship in the middle ground, and it looked like one was behind the curve. I'd love to see that. I can't remember. I think it was Wolfie. I might be wrong with Wolfie, but there was one of them that did that, and it'd be interesting to see whether the one in the background was mirroring the way this is, because that would be another reason for why it's not Earth curve.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're just smashing it out of the park right now. I mean, you've seen this image before. And if you listen to the debate I had with Ruhif, and he's one of the most ardent defenders of the globe, he even admits, as does, what's he called? The Rumpus. You know, they all seem to be on board with this idea now that the inferior mirage is atmospheric blockage. It isn't actually the reified edge of a sphere. So we've got plenty of information to prove that. But the fact that Where's Wally's going back to this incredulous idea that the inferior mirage and with the perceived horizon, when you've got the perceived horizon, it isn't the real horizon, you know. I mean, you've got atmospheric blockage above that, and that will hide the bottom of boats and things. It's just ridiculous that he's going back to those kind of arguments that have been long debunked. And
you never asked me why I left that last hangout with Ruhif.
Why did? Yeah, you're right. I didn't. We haven't spoke since. So, right. So why did you leave? Why did you leave the last hangout with Ruhif?
Because he's a fucking liar. So he put me in at he said he corrected my observer height to 10 meters or 15 meters, whatever it was he said, and I pulled him up on it and I said, hang on a minute. I said, Ranty, you've been there. We've measured that. Do you remember when you had the argument with Lottie about what the height was of that area? That's the same area that he's on about. Your argument with Lottie was the same argument, right? You and I went and measured it. I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty certain it was 21 feet down to the beach. Then you can add on whatever sea height you want. Say another 10 feet for sea height or whatever. Well, he was putting me at, from memory, I think it was either 10 meters or 15 meters. And I said, that's nearly 50 feet. And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, you're not correcting me there. You're fucking lying. Now, when I listened back to the live hangout, you had us muted at the time, so you couldn't hear that. Or if you could hear it, the audience definitely didn't hear it. But I wasn't prepared to sit there and let him just tell people that I was at 50 foot when me and you measured it at 21 feet plus the tide height, whatever it was. I'm not having it. So there's no point in having the conversation with him, because he's doing it based on a false statement of fact that he just arbitrarily... I mean, I asked him for what the citation was for where he gets this value from, and he flippantly said Ordnance Survey map. So I said afterwards, and I said, can I see it? So he gave me a link, and there's no numbers on it for starters, and there's no line near where I was. And I'm like, so where have you got this fucking value from of 10 meters? And he's plucked it out of his arse. But obviously he needs me to be significantly higher to give him more leeway to argue his point. Well, I wasn't prepared to allow him to give that because you and I had measured that height of that, and it was about 21 feet above the top where the tide comes in at high tide. It were about 21 feet, right? Say 25. Stick the tide on to say 35. Still ain't fucking 50 feet, is it? And that 15 meters really matters because
Well,
it
it
gives.
was more than that because he was claiming 17 meters, so it was around about 56 feet.
Yeah, but he needs wiggle room to add
Yeah,
his
that's what
art.
I'm saying. He was saying 50. It wasn't 50. You're being generous to him. He was claiming that you were 56 feet above, not 50.
I remember the values, but what I do remember was you and Lottie had a back and forth about what height it was, and you and I had gone back and physically we thrown. Do you remember that day when we thrown a tape down and we were there, like literally on the beach, and we were trying to calculate what angle it was? And
I've got a video of it, mate. I've got videos
Yeah.
of it.
So this is all. This is and Ruif just flippantly comes in, and aside from the fact he doesn't think it's the fucking lighthouse, he also doesn't think that we're at the height that we're at. And this argument went on for weeks and weeks and weeks to the point where you and I had gone back with a tape measure, thrown it down. Then we were arguing over what the angle was to calculate the trig with regards to the observer height and the whatever. But at the end of the day, it was bugger all. Literally bugger all, and Lottie was wrong. Which what was there was a bet involved of, was it $2,000 or $1,000 or whatever it was?
I can't even remember now. Probably something like that. He's still not paid me, but I'm not bothered. It is what it is.
Wrong. But this fucking moron, obviously you'd forgotten that because obviously it was time had gone by. But I'm sat there and I'm thinking, I'm not even having the Miles Davis argument with you. If you're not going to back down over this, or at least present your supporting evidence, I'm out of here. And that was why I left. I left because he's overtly lying, and I'm not prepared. I've got zero patience for these fucking idiots now. I used to enjoy the conversation, but at the end of the day, if gravity's not a force, right, and gas pressure, you can't have it in a container unless you're in a container, the whole argument's fucked. So I'm not even prepared to give them any wiggle room anymore. It's like, fuck you. That height is measured, and we've argued over it for weeks and weeks, and you're going to flippantly come in here and tell us that it's not the fucking lighthouse and that we're at some fucking massive height. Fucking idiots. I'm not having it.
I just want to say to the people in the chat, if you've got people you want to time out, you time them out. I mean, there's a reason why you've even been given moderator status. I would appreciate, use a little restraint where possible. But if you feel like you're being trolled or whatever, and they're not, they're actually just here to troll, then time them out.
Shout out to Ute. Ute is an awesome dude. He supports Man United, which is a shame. But other than that, he's a decent guy. He's into football as well. So, and shout out to Everton fans that got beat by Liverpool Team B tonight. Liverpool won 1-0. We played our B team against Everton's A team, and we still won. In the FA Cup as well, third round of the FA Cup. It was glorious. Anyway.
So you seem to have laid the ghost to rest this evening.
I've just got an answer for why that boat appeared to be behind what looks like the curve. Because honestly, if Miles Delia Davis would have gone out and saw that boat, he'd have been wanking over it because it's not obvious. It did look like curve, right? But I've had it before. I've rang Nathan and I've said, Nathan, this really looks fucking bendy. And Nathan's like, it's not bendy, it's some optical effect. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm here looking at it and it looks bendy. One day he said to me, go back and get your other lens and put it on. I was like, okay. So I went back, put the other lens on it, realised it wasn't bendy at all. But the point is, even on flat Earth side, you can go there and you can look at whatever it is you're looking at, and sometimes it can look curvy, but it ain't curve because we're not living on a ball. And if it is a ball, it's not the size they're telling us. It doesn't matter whether it's a ball or not. Really, what matters is it's not their model. Their model's not right. Another example of where their model fails.
I've said if you can count the amount of times, probably over the last, let's just say the last 2 years, that I've said the sky repeating down on itself, right? I would imagine that's probably close to 1,000 times that I may have used that particular phrase. The sky is repeating down on itself and it's causing a blockage.
You need to learn the phrase Fata Bromosa though, because there's the thing.
That's the sea, isn't it?
Where the sea repeats above itself. Yeah,
we need an effect for the sky repeating down on itself too, though. That's what we need.
Yeah, we don't. I don't think there is a phrase for that. I've not come across that one.
We'll have to think of something for that because we do need to counter it with. I mean, this is real. This is real and observable.
It would be a superior mirage because the image of the thing you're looking at is being repeated upside down below the target. So it would be a superior mirage. But the problem is the word mirage is just flippantly used as an explanation for everything. And it's like it's used totally out of context by a lot of people a lot of the time. So it kind of doesn't mean anything anymore. Because, I mean, I've heard Rupif saying, yeah, it's a mirage. It's like you don't even know what a mirage is. You're claiming it, but you don't even know what it is. But everybody seems to use the word flippantly to describe anything that seems to obstruct. I mean, I remember when Cat Earth used to say things like, "Yeah, show me the beach, and I'll concede that it's flat." And at the time, I was like, "Well, why can't we see the beach?" And the reason is because it gets that small angular wise that you can't see it. It's like Nathan says, if you get a skyscraper, you can see the skyscraper at 30 miles, but you can't see the bricks at the bottom because the bricks at the bottom are too small. Well, the same for the beach. The beach is like a little tiny pixel in most images. 30 miles away, that pixel's not a pixel anymore. But you can still see the shoreline, but you just can't see the beach. So, like, I remember when he said that, and I remember thinking to myself, realistically speaking, dude, you're never going to see the beach because it's too small. But I never really voiced it because I wasn't at that point in the journey at the time. But now I realise that obviously that is the answer. But a lot of it is common sense. But a lot of ballers just flippantly use words that they think they know what they're talking about, and it drives me.
There was a channel that I promoted today called Sky Free. I don't know if you seen that.
Yeah, I saw your community tab post. Yeah.
Did you subscribe?
I did.
You've got me on echo. I can hear myself. There we go.
You got echo? Oh, hang on. It's because I got you a bit loud. You what have now?
So at the time, I think this Sky Free. I think she's a lady. I don't know if it's a group of people because I haven't seen all of the videos, but it is a woman's voice. And I think at the time she had around about 40 subscribers. So I put the post out. So I'm not just claiming it's all from me because other people have promoted it too. But she's got 123 now, which is excellent. So she's put on at least 80 subscribers today. But I would recommend highly that people go over and watch this. What she's done is she's used a small. She's been looking at optics and she's been looking at things like shark boat. So not specifically shark boat, but the same effect of this effect with shark boat. As it bobs in and out of the water, you can sometimes see a mouth on it, etc. Well, what she's done is she's got herself a little remote control boat, and she's gone onto a lake. And she's got as low down as possible with the cameras and stuff, and she's able to replicate these kind of effects over a very short distance, and it shows you how these inferior mirages block things out. Here's a good example that I've got on screen right now of this boat. You probably can't see this, Tony. You might have to watch it on the watch page, but
it's the one that says RC boat sails into the horizon on a small pond.
Let me just bring it back up again to have a look. No, it's called Earth Surface Experiment 5, Curvature of Light on Horizontal Surfaces.
Oh, hang on, let me look. It's not a recent video, is it?
It was put out 2 or 3 days ago.
Earth Surface Experiment Part 5?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you go back to 3 minutes,
3 minutes,
yeah, and you can see that she's got this tiny remote controlled boat, and she's going to sort of like...
This is excellent stuff.
It is, and she demonstrates.
Exactly, we're looking at over 15 miles, and the boat should have gone behind the curve at this point, but she's doing it over 10 meters or whatever it is.
Not very far. She's doing it over a very small lake.
So this is the same argument for. Do you remember when Jose Gonzalez flip-flop when he did his light in the supermarket floor and his light disappeared when he got lower? And for some reason, he decided to flippantly dismiss that and stop people using it. But it's the reduction of the observer angle to the target. It's Airy's diffraction. That's what we're looking at right now.
It's a tremendously good video, I have to say. I mean, I watched some of it. I think I saw it originally from Wide Awake's channel. Wide Awake mirrored part of this video, and then explained a little bit about it too. And so he made this video, I think, about 10 minutes long. He used about 3 or 4 minutes of this. But I would highly recommend people go to the channel, support these new flat earthers that are going out there and understanding optics. Obviously, if you go to about 5 minutes 37, Tony, you can see this effect of the clear inferior mirage on the bank in the distance, on the bank in the distance, and she goes in to explain how these actually, this effect actually hides the bottom of these boats. It's very clever, eh?
Fucking hell, Ranty, just do me a favour. Put it on screen. Look at what's being shown on screen at 5. Go to 5:30 and be ready to pause it at about 42-ish.
5:30 and pause it.
It's something new that I've just spotted that we can apply on a bigger scale that we don't see day to day. Well, no, we do see day to day, but can't explain.
Yeah, that's it. That's the shark boat. That's that shark boat. 5:42. Right. And there we go. There we see that actual.
Yeah, but look at how much the mirroring of the bank is mirrored underneath where the boat actually is. The boat's sat on the water, but we're seeing the mirage go underneath the water level. So when Dickhead Rumpus says you can calculate the radius of the Earth with a what's it called, a theodolite at the beach, he's going to be using the lower image for the horizon where the water is to be, and it's not. That's proving that the horizon is not real. Like Nathan always says, it's an apparent position that's not actual, but it proves that the horizon is a reflection of where it really is. It's significantly higher than what it perceives to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've said this all the time. The sky repeats itself down, so the sky is miraging over stuff underneath. In this case, it's blocking out the water. The physical water is hidden under an inferior mirage. This is all inferior mirage. This is a repeat of the sky. If you're watching this on the
right, just hold it now. Get where the boat's in the picture, and then
hold. Yeah, I have everything underneath the boat to the horizon, or the perceived horizon, is an inferior mirage. So that's right. It's partly an inferior mirage of the boat, and the rest of it is an inferior mirage of the sky. Now, normally this would be blue in colour, but because she's so low down on a lake and she's got this embankment behind her, which is all kind of greens and greys and browns and stuff, that's what we're getting. This is what we're seeing. But in general, over oceans, etc., you'll see the sky repeated down on itself, so it'll be typically blue. Now, if it's the same colour as the water, you'd just see it all blue with a boat in the distance. Sometimes you'll see a hard horizon, sometimes you'll see a different horizon, sometimes you'll see a blue sky and a grey thing. But this is a perfect example of showing you how the inferior mirage blocks out the water, lowering the horizon, and causing an optical blockage.
Ranty, let's paraphrase what you're saying. Remove the background that's the embankment of the grass, whatever it is behind, and replace that with sky. If that was the horizon and we were looking at sky and there was a boat looming up from behind the curve or whatever they're going to come up with, you can see now when there's a different backdrop, you can see now where the actual horizon is, the water line, where the boat is, and you can see now that the sky would repeat underneath itself, give you a perception that the horizon doesn't rise to eye level, and that's Earth curve. Bastards would apply maths to it and claim that you can calculate the circumference of the Earth based on this, with a theodolite at the beach, and we couldn't prove that it can't, but this video proves that that's not true. This is fantastic. I love this video. This is excellent. Nathan, if you're still watching, you need to get your head around this. This is brilliant.
It is, and it's something that I think Travis has filmed too. He filmed a boat, and it was in focus the whole way till it just disappeared into a smudge, literally in a smudge. And what we're seeing on screen right now, the same part you asked me to freeze it, is this effect. You see, it looked like it was going across water, and then it disappeared into atmosphere, and it was floating on atmosphere till it just disappeared. And this is exactly the same. In this case, you're still seeing the boat, but in Travis's video, you just saw it go into a little dot and disappear. And that's exactly the same. A tremendously good video. This person, I have a feeling she's going to be really good in the coming months, guys.
Need to get this on Nathan's, because this is probably a pièce de resistance, in the same way that Good Times for All, Zach, when he did his paint lids in the warehouse on the floor, and it showed that they blended into the floor. This is probably her best video. I don't think she'll ever get better than this. This is fantastic for demonstrating that the horizon's not an actual position, that there is sky being miraged on top of it, and they've raped the effects of perspective for whatever optical causes. I mean, this proves that we're not looking at the hard horizon being the curve, the leading edge of the sphere. It's just ridiculous. This is fantastic.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the link in the chat so that people can click this link. They can watch the whole video if they want. The name of the channel is called Sky Free. Let me just lower that down so that people can see. You can see that I've actually put a comment in. Glad I found this channel. Thanks for your work, and let's see if we can get you some more views and subscribers. And she's had a lot.
3 years ago, then everything that we've been wondering, what's going on here, that would have short circuited 3 years of our life of asking questions and trying to work out what the hell's going on, because this basically is 3 years of us saying what's going on at the horizon. It encapsulates it in one little video. This is what happens at the horizon because of the angle, not because of it's a ball.
Right, let me pop out the
I'm just going to put on a comment saying wow. That's all I'm going to put.
Just wow. Is that all you're going to put? Wow. Is that all you can put? Put wow, Ranty's promoted the shit out of you. Blah, 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 blah. Come on his channel and tell us what you got planned over the next few weeks.
I'm going to put Ranty sent me. I am such a sheep.
Hang on, why is Roxanne the Globalist Denier not a wrench on here? Let me just...
She never comes in anymore. She's too busy. She's too posh for us now.
Really?
Got a few now, and she's disappeared again.
Well, I think Roxanne definitely deserves a wrench. Let me wrench you up there, Roxanne. There we go.
It's too posh for us. Us mere mortals.
And do you know what I'm also going to do? I'm going to moderate this guy here. Flat Earth Aussie Jesus. There we go.
Do you know what Roxanne calls us and Dolly calls us?
Go on.
Collectively, me and you are known as Rantony.
Rantony. That came from Nathan when he actually said that about bloody 6 months ago. He called us Rantony one time. I went, what?
Yeah. Sometimes those things slip out accidentally. I mean, how many times do you misspeak whilst you're live and you say the wrong word? You know, like you mean to say blue, but you accidentally, for some reason, you say red, and it's like everybody knows I meant blue, but for some reason the word red came out. It happens all the time when you're live. Sometimes you flummox your words, but Rantony is a great example of one that's naff.
And I just want to point out to Paige, who says something about Gerhard Silig, asking about his wrench. He was de-wrenched about 5 months ago. About 5 minutes ago. Had him as a part-time moderator. Who's messaging me? Let's have a look on Skype.
Yeah, Selig, message deleted by Cleary. YouTube Cleary, let's discuss that. Doesn't seem like he's failed the attitude, though.
Here we go. So let's have a look. So very funky images. This is from Dean, who says, "Or video, do you have me and Rumpus discussing?" Who's Dean? I can't think at the top of my head who Dean is.
Don't know who Dean might be. Cat Earth.
Yeah, it definitely isn't Cat Earth.
Oh no. Cat Earth's Alex. Dean is what's his face? That pomp brick from Yorkshire. What's his name? Oh, do you know I can't think of his name now.
Sorry. Anyway, I've just had a message anyway. He says it's very funky images. Is he a glober or is he a flat earther?
Oh, he's a glober. He's a protagonist glober, a prick. A pompous prick on Jose's chat. Dean. What's his? I can't remember his name now. I should know this. I can't remember his name.
Let's see. Stingray.
Yes, Stingray.
He's just messaged me to say Stingray. Yeah, I mean, he says it's very funky images. So by that, I would hope that he would mean that it's very interesting images, not just funky, because we see this effect. People that go out and do video photography and see this stuff in reality, and I'm going to quote some people here: Wide Awake, myself, Sleeping Warrior, and plenty of other people that have Travis, who have a plethora of these images that show these effects, that understand it, that understand these effects. You know, this isn't new stuff for me anyway. It is for you, Tony, clearly. But
no, it's not new. I understood what the point was being explained, but because this has been applied on a little model boat over 20, 30 meters, whatever it is, it's not even that. It's probably 10, 15 meters, but whatever the distance is irrelevant. Look at the backdrop. The backdrop's not sky. So if the backdrop was sky, you would just see a low horizon.
Yeah.
You would see a boat that appears to be ghosting across the top of it. You wouldn't have an explanation for it. Norbeds would tell you it's being loomed up from behind or towering or whatever. It's fuck all to do with towering or stacking or looming. It's because the angle. That's all it is. And ballers steal that because they need to on their model. It matches their perception on their model, but doesn't mean it's true.
And there it goes. It's disappeared. It's actually disappeared. It's gone now. It's gone. It's hidden. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone.
And
this is so good.
Look how still the water is.
So good. I'm going to play that again for people to follow this boat. So you're going to follow this boat, and you're going to watch it disappear on a flat lake into that inferior mirage. Watch it. Here we go. Here we go. You can see it. It's bobbing along. It's doing its little thing where it's opening its mouth. It's doing its little shark boat thing. And now it's just about to go. It's just about to go. Oh, yeah, it's gone. It's gone.
This reminds me of Red's Rhetoric's boat that he thought was going over the horizon as well, and I was like, oh my god, can you not see it's being stretched to all hell and back? Everything that they tell us is the opposite. It's just they've come up with an explanation that seems to match their model, and then they use that model to tell us that that's what we live on. And then you look at this little model boat and just realise that the horizon is lower. You can imagine Rumpus calculating the curvature, the circumference of Earth or the radius of Earth on that height of the horizon with a theodolite at the beach, and proudly proclaiming that this means that the Earth's a ball. You can see it, can't you? And I'm like, oh my god, this is gold.
It's an excellent. See, I've wanted to. The funny thing is, I never thought out of the box and thought let's go down and do it on a scale that's like a micro scale. I was always thinking about doing it as a real boat over a long distance, involving all kinds of different things: drone, P1000s, 2 or 3 different people, different camera angles. You know, I never thought to sort of like just scale it down and do it like this.
And you know, that scale process is what quantum mechanics is all about. When you go from macro level to micro and then to nano, we're looking at micro scales now. But because normally we're looking at macro scales, right? Real world. If you go down to micro scale, which is what we're doing now with a little toy boat, if you then went down to like the nano level, which is what quantum mechanics is, the answers would probably be in there. I'm not sure that they definitely are, but you're right. When we scale it down and we get the same effects just over a couple of meters or whatever yards or whatever distance this is, I mean, it's clearly not that far because that bloke's crouched at the bottom, on the bank of the shore next to it. But whatever the distance is involved, it's clearly not Earth curve that's making that boat do what it's doing. It's clearly optical. And if the sky's repeating underneath it and you can't tell where the horizon actually is, which is why you get all those fake waves, Ranty. Do you remember when you call them fake waves?
Yeah.
That's the sky being reflected on top of it.
Yeah, we've called this all the time. I mean, Pete Shea's talked about this mirrored water layer. You know, we as flat earthers, we just know that we know what it is. We've been able to demonstrate it eventually, you know, but getting people to just understand that this is like an illusion that happens over water. The properties of water can cause its effect. It's been a long, hard journey. When we first started talking about this, that even flat earthers were skeptical. You know, they didn't want to really get into this discussion about this effect of the inferior mirage. They didn't want to do that.
Ranty, do me a favour, just move the chat out of the way a sec.
Of course.
That bloke that's squatting down on the bank there.
So it's a woman, I think.
Or whatever, that figure. Imagine that's landmass. Let's just say, for argument's sake, it's Isle of Man or Mackle Lighthouse. And look at how it's reflected underneath itself. When dickheads like Ruhif claim that we're not looking at the lighthouse, and then we see a tall, phallic-looking, cylindrical lighthouse-resembling thing, I accept that half of it's being reflected back up on itself. But the point is, A, it is the lighthouse, and B, if it is reflecting back on itself, and even if it gives the perception that it's taller than what it actually is because the angular size proportions is wrong or whatever, what it demonstrates is that's where the horizon's being cut on the image. So everything below that is where the beach would be. Everything above that is real world. But what it's not doing is it's not being cut off by the curvature, because when it's reflected underneath itself, it's normally cutting into the water. It's giving us a perception of a lower horizon and what it actually is. It's such a really good video. This is a fantastic video.
Yeah, and it's really interesting when she actually lowers the boat into that inferior mirage. I'm just gonna try and slow it down a little. What she's doing is she's holding the boat in her hand, and she's going to place it to the edge of the water. Well, let's go back to 609. So I'm going to play it on slow. So playback speed 0.25, and what you'll see, she's going to lower it down into the water. And when she lowers it down, it disappears into the inferior mirage completely. Right? It's no lot. Right, so here we go. And you don't see it. It's behind that inferior mirage, completely hidden behind it. And then eventually it's going to pop out. Now this is across a very small lake. There we go. There we go. Now we can see it. It's popped out. Just crazy, 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 crazy effects of this inferior mirage. Easily provable with this very small demonstration. So I have to say, what's she called again? I keep saying her name, but I keep forgetting. Sky Free.
Yeah.
Sky Free. So 123 subscribers when I started playing this video. Let me copy this now, and I'm gonna paste it in the chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait a couple of minutes. I'm going to wait for everybody to just piss off over there. Subscribe immediately. You know, click this button when I send you this link now. Piss off over there right now. Click it. Come back. And we're going to check how many subscribers she has. Right? That's what we're going to do. We're going to check that out. We're going to see if people actually do this, because we got 100 people watching already, 105. So if everybody went over there, we could get her easily past 200. This is what we need to do to support these channels that are doing this new stuff.
I'm going to pick on Roxanne Glenn, Roxanne the Globalist tonight. I want to know in chat that she's gone over to Sky Free, so, like, click the subscribe button and the notify icon, the bell icon, and then come back. So I want Roxanne to tell us that she's done it.
Yeah. Nathan Oakley, you're not the boss of me, Ranty.
Say my name.
Say my name. I heard Nathan on Arwin's today. He needed his daily fix, so he went to Arwin's to have a little chat with him. Oh, it's pretty good.
Roxanne subbed. Yay.
I'm not doing it. She could be a paid CIA show for all we know.
Oh, do you know what? It's gonna give me great pleasure just to time that one idiot out there. So put user in timeout. I rarely time anybody out, but yeah, 7. Say goodbye to your next 300 seconds, dude, because you're just being a penis.
Yeah, 7. Message deleted by a sleeping warrior. Right, I'm going to have a little look at what he put. Not very benevolent. Oh, I see. So that was a dig at Roxanne. I get you.
Yeah, for the Global Ito where they chopped up the well, the cops with the banner or whatever it was. The clergy, wasn't it? Somebody out there.
Yeah, he got arrested, didn't he?
It wasn't very benevolent of him, was it? To be honest.
Right,
I think it's all the Globers that day learnt that word. That was a new word to them, and they all learnt it that day, and they just don't like the fact that they've learnt a new word.
Right, so I've just clicked on Sky Free now, so she's got 141 subs. So that's pretty ace. We've managed to get her another 18. To be honest, I mean, getting anybody to actually go and subscribe to anybody, it's incredibly difficult. I remember when I was on like 900 subscribers and Nathan would shout me out with his 200 people watching, and he'd say, go and subscribe to Ranty. I'd get maybe 1 subscriber or something. So to actually be able to move people like this to go and subscribe to this, it's pretty cool.
And the thing is, the expectation is when you get your name shouted out on a channel, the expectation is I'll get at least 10 subs from that, and you get none.
And I have done that before. I've been on other channels and thought, oh, I'll maybe get a few subscribers, and I've not got any. And then other times I went on like Gerrans and stuff, and I picked up like a couple of hundred over a few days, which was excellent, you know. So,
Ranty, did you watch Globebusters tonight?
Yes, I did actually. I listened to it all.
I didn't watch any of it. Somebody sent me a link of it, a sound bite of Bob talking about gravity, if I'm on Nathan's tomorrow, that's going to be coming up because I don't know what it is with Bob and gravity, but Bob's got this bone that he won't let go called gravity. And I don't even know what he defines gravity as, but he thinks gravity exists, right? And he calls it a force. Even though Einstein is the current science that says it's not a force, it's an effect, Bob, for some reason, thinks that he's more intelligent than Einstein. And he thinks that when I push Einstein, he thinks that I'm supporting Einstein. Bob doesn't understand that I'm using Einstein as a hostile witness, not because I agree with Einstein, but because I want all the ballers to apply the current science. Einstein, whether it's right or wrong from my opinion or my perspective, is completely irrelevant, Bob. It's their science, and they've got to argue that it's not a force, it's an effect. So when I hear you telling people that there are people in Flat Earth that are denying gravity, well, why would anybody think that there's gravity when we don't see any observed phenomena? Step one of the scientific method is an observed phenomena, and Bob thinks that things fall to the ground, but he ignores helium balloons that don't fall to the ground. So if we apply Bob's theory of gravity being a force, then if things get pulled to the ground by a force, what is it that's pulling the helium balloon to the sky, Bob? I'll leave that on with you till Nathan's, because you're going to get roasted for this tomorrow, Bob. You're just being an absolute ball earther. It's just on. There's no observed phenomena. There is nothing mass doesn't attract mass because, well, it doesn't attract mass, Bob. So when you're telling people that people in this topic deny gravity, well, that's because there's no observed phenomena. We don't observe a gravity phenomena, Bob. I know you want there to be one for some weird reason. Well, what's the evidence that demonstrates that there's an attractive force between the Earth when helium balloons go the opposite way? And we know it's caused by the medium because we can manipulate it and make the helium balloon fall. If we move the medium and make it into a vacuum, that helium balloon drops. So what's the cause, Bob? Come on.
Give a shout out to Flat Earth Aussie Jesus, who I've just subscribed to. He's in the chat right now, and he does do his own little live streams. Unfortunately, he doesn't get a huge amount of viewers, but a lot of that's down to the fact that obviously he gets suppressed on YouTube, and also they only really promote channels once you go past 1,000 subscribers. Well, he's done well to get to 420, because believe you me, it is a climb and a half to get your first 100. The first 500 is so difficult, and to get into 1,000 is incredibly difficult. He must have been trying his... Go on, just let me finish. He must have been trying. I mean, look at how many videos he's put out. He's maybe got, I don't know, a subscriber for every video that he's put out, and he's been going at this for over a year now, and he's still not managed to get to his 1,000 subscribers. So I did see him in the chat saying that he would love to get to 1,000 subscribers. So if we can all sort of like pull together as well, maybe try and go ahead and subscribe to him, and let's see if we can push a few of these smaller channels to reach their targets. 1,000 subscribers will allow him to monetize his channel for things like super chats and stuff, so when he does these live streams, people can help support him. He was saying that in his actual live streams, you know, from his connection, you know, it's not very good, but with a better connection he would be able to do better stuff. So it's all a process of scaling up in this case. So in this case, when he gets to 1,000 subscribers, he can do better content, stream more, etc., etc. And it's good for everybody because everyone's got their own niches they talk about. In this case, I imagine this is him talking about the Bible and such. I would imagine Flat Earth Aussie Jesus. So there we go. That's my little shout out for you, mate. So I'm going to copy that link and I'm going to post it in the chat, and hopefully get you a few more subscribers. So let me...
Are you done, Arwin? I mean, Vanty?
Hey, listen, I do this quite a lot, you know. I do this quite a lot.
Let me shout out Lee Redpath in chat. He says, you need to pull Jupiter nearby to check. Damn right you do. So if Bob thinks that Earth is an attractive force between other masses, then Bob's going to have to demonstrate that with pulling Jupiter towards it, because that's the only other mass that's bigger than the Earth that's close to us. He needs to demonstrate that. And we all know he can't do that. If he could do it at all, I'm sure he probably would have a go at it. But yeah, Lee Redpath is right. If gravity is a force, the only way they could demonstrate it would be with Jupiter. So Lee That's on the right planet. He's got it right.
Okay, so H2O Water says, so now this channel supports people who think giants created the moon. Do you know what? I think there's probably people out there that probably do think that, and if Flat Earth Aussie Jesus believes in that and he's got proof for that, then listen, people are going to tune into that and listen to that. It's not for me, but do I believe in giants? Do I believe giants actually did exist? Hell yes. I think there's plenty of supporting evidence to prove that to be the case. I'm not going to get into it right now, but there's a lot that, you know, that what?
Look at Ninja Man's comment. He says, Ranty, Aussie Jesus pisses live on camera and is drunk all the time on screen. Sounds like me.
He sounds like a good lad. Sounds like a good laugh. Have I seen his channel? No. But you know what? People will either stay on his channel or they won't stay on his channel. It's as simple as that. So, yeah. I'm happy to shout people out that have Flat Earth in the name. And it's got 420 subscribers. Yeah, that'll do for me. Go on, Tony, you were saying.
Yeah, there's another new channel. Do us a favour, Ranty. It's a new channel, right? She was shouting. She's a vegan, right? But she was shouting out Flat Earth recently. She's brand new to the topic. She's literally brand new, but somehow she's managed to get 1,000 subs in about a week.
Right,
I don't know.
What's she called?
Patricia Steer, her name is.
Oh, right, okay.
So make sure she's back on the scene. So make sure you go and give her a sub.
I am already subbed. I think. Yeah, there we go. Subscribed. She's got 1,500 subscribers already. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's not true that it takes a long time to get 1,000 subs. She got it in less than a week.
Well, she already had a Priya channel and was quite well known with like 17,000 subscribers. So, and it's been promoted quite a lot recently that she's back. Everyone knows. So.
She's no Nathan Oakley, let's put it that way. How many subs has Nathan got these days?
H2O Water, you're going to just keep tagging me in this. Right, fuck off. Right. I don't need your shit. Keep tagging me out. Piss off. Genuinely.
Yeah. He's booking me as well.
Right, well, he's gone now. He's just... Bang, he's gone.
Oh, Nathan's got 16,000 subs currently. So, yeah, she's better than Nathan.
It was really quite interesting actually that when Nathan was waiting to get to 15,000 subscribers, he was kept about 50 subscribers from 15,000 for an entire year, and as soon as he's passed 15,000, he's bummed up to 16,000 real quick. So I think they have you on that kind of precipice. You know, what am I at now? I'm at 4.71. So it's probably going to take about 6 months to get to 5,000. Just because of the way that these algorithms work, you know, they kind of...
Tell you what was interesting. You know that we've been pointing out algorithm issues with YouTube, things like removing subs and downvoting videos and generally removing comments or whatever, and we're all conspiratorial by nature, and we're like, what's going on here? Trolls versus Trolls has done a video where I think it was Rock Lover took a screenshot of Patricia's video, and there was X amount of likes, thumbs up, and X amount of thumbs down at the beginning of show. And then by the end of it, half the thumbs down votes had been removed. And obviously, he jumped on the bandwagon and said, oh, she must be, this is proof that she's an agent. And I'm all doing demonstrating we've been saying for the last 3 years that YouTube are playing funny buggers with, because we see this all the time. But now ballers are getting onto this. They instantly associate this YouTube algorithm fucking around with numbers thing as Patricia being an agent. And I'm like, you fucking idiot. We've been saying this for years, and you guys have been laughing at us, calling us conspiratorial retards, idiots. Now you guys see it, and now instantly we point it back to you and say that's what's going on, and you think somehow that she's an agent as a direct consequence of you actually noticing that YouTube play funny buggers with numbers. How stupid is Rock Lover? Unbelievable.
It's well known that if you've got like a bunch of sock accounts, what they've done now is they've removed that ability for you to just keep clicking downvote on all your sock accounts, because they'll only take one. So you could do it 20 times and it will register quick. You know, it will register 20. So you could go 20 downvotes, but if you're just the one channel doing it from the one computer, they'll just remove the other 19 some hours later. Some hours later it'll reset and it'll be like, nah, that all came from the one channel. I've seen it quite a lot.
That means Arwin, because he said when I was listening to him like recently, he said that he was getting downvotes by one or two trolls on sock accounts, and I can totally believe that. But if that's now not the case, it means that either they're not getting downvotes by trolls, or they are trolls but they're using a dynamic IP address and they're managing to get around it, which will put them past it.
Well, it's good that they've done that because. Like you said, like you've just said, Arwin was always getting targeted prior to him before he even went live. He would have like 25 downvotes. It was just insane. But have you noticed how the downvotes have sort of like shifted a lot? You know, like Nathan when he goes live now, he doesn't normally get as many downvotes as he used to do.
To be honest, I never look at downvotes or upvotes as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, they all help because it's all showing interaction to YouTube, so they love it. You know, I mean, if it was up to me, I'd love to get 200 upvotes and 200 downvotes because that's 400 interactions. You know, it's better than just 200 likes and no dislikes.
I don't know who Trolls versus Trolls is, but when I saw his video and I saw the argument for why they thought it was Patricia being an agent. And then I looked at it and I was like, all you're doing is pointing out what we've known for years. And you guys have laughed at us when we've suggested that there's funny business going on. Never once did we suggest that it was because there are people on the inside that are CIA agents. I mean, how stupid is that? But when a ball earther makes that suggestion, Troll versus Trolls kind of massages that ego for him. And then when I point out we've spotted this for years, you should see the reaction that I got from Trolls versus Trolls. It was like, Jesus, I thought you were supposed to be neutral. We've been saying for years that YouTube have been manipulating numbers, figures, all that kind of stuff for whatever reason, nefarious or otherwise. And for some reason now it's just like pick on me day because you guys are now you guys are spotting that, and then we've been saying for years, and it's not a reflection on her being a agent in any whatsoever. Somehow that justifies you to be scornful against me for reminding you guys that you've laughed at us for 2 years when we've told you this. It's like you're only just realising it now, morons. Fucking idiot.
Have you seen the channel Sean G? Or Sean G's channel?
Yeah, it's Sean Little G. Sean Little G, I call him because he thinks gravity's a force.
Yeah, hang on, just let me adjust my... just one sec. Just need to... Come on.
I love Patricia, and anyone who puts shite in her is a cowardly loser. Patricia's one of the best people in this topic, but everybody seems to have this reason to dislike her for no reason whatsoever, but they think it's a reason. It's ridiculous.
So, yeah, going back to Sean G, there we go, so I've just increased the mic volume. So, Sean G, it was an embarrassing live stream that he did last night. I was listening to it, and these guys were on there talking about 9/11, and it was shocking. It was shocking the people they had on there. Like they had George Netanyahu, whatever he's called, and he was on there, and he's totally defending the mainstream argument for 9/11.
Yeah, you need 3 planes to knock 3 buildings down, George, not 2 planes and 3 buildings.
You know, talking about jet fuel being able to burn through the steel that they had there, even though the fact that these buildings were designed to actually withstand the impact of a plane, right? The fact that jet fuel can't heat up hot enough to actually burn that steel, the fact that military grade nanothermite was used, and then he gets it. George starts saying, "Well, military grade. The only difference between military grade and normal thermite is the size of the particles, etc., etc., etc." And I'm like, is he completely just ignoring the fact that you just cannot make military grade nanothermite? It has to be made in a military grade. You know, the people that make it aren't living out of a hut somewhere in Afghanistan or a cave. You know, this is military grade nanothermite that was found. It's not something that you can just your average Joe can make. You know.
Let me do a retraction. Trolls versus Trolls has just put in chat. He says, "I didn't do that video, Riley. Sleeping Warrior. It was Shills versus Shills. My apologies. Trolls versus Trolls. Shills versus Shills. Trolls versus Trolls. You know, you can forgive me for getting that one a little bit mixed up. They're very similar."
And I just want to apologise to people for actually believing that George isn't a mainstream, basically shill, and that's what you know. Now I understand it. Listen, I've heard him. I've heard his qualifications. I've heard his discussions about things, and I was willing to entertain him for this kind of debate in the flat Earth. But hearing his discussion last night about 9/11 completely changed my opinion of him. Not only, I was kind of willing to forgive his issues that he had with Brian Mullen, just to get to the truth, to get to the arguments, to get to the actual. Right, okay, we've got someone here that we can say has the qualifications to be able to defend globe Earth, right? So I was willing to look past that for that purpose. But now that I just realised that he is just a shill, there's no two ways about it. I heard him last night about 9/11, and nobody in the right mind, literally nobody. I mean, you can go to people in America, and they all know that 9/11 didn't happen the way that it was told in the mainstream. They know this. There's so much evidence out there. And then they go into this idea that, okay, well, how many people signed up for the Architects and Engineers 9/11 Truth? Well, over 3,000. And how many people are signed up to architecture, etc., and engineering in America? Well, over 100,000. Let's say 200,000. I don't know. So even if you said 1 in 100 of these architects and engineers signed up, they were trying to quantify that as only 1 in 100 believed that the buildings fell the way they did, right? Not the fact that, okay, 1 in 100 actually signed up to the government, to take on the government and hold them to task and say, you fucking killed so many thousands of people, and you also brought down the World Trade Centers, and you sent us to war in fucking Afghanistan. So it's not just the case of whether they believe it, it's actually having the balls to sign up to it and say that the official story is wrong. So in my opinion, there could be 50%, there could be 90% of architects and engineers in America that all know that those buildings didn't fall the way down the way they did. But who's going to sign up to that? Only the bravest of the brave. So just to say that only 1% or 2% are the ones that actually signed that document or signed up to this campaign doesn't have a reflection of how many people actually believe that. You know.
Let me just say that for me the heliocentric model is destroyed with gravity. If gravity is not a force, it's game over, right? There's a few others that are strong ones as well, but 9/11, you need fucking 3 planes to knock 3 buildings down, but there were only 2 planes and 3 buildings fell, right? That in itself tells you that something else went on, right? You don't have to explain. You don't have to be a physicist or a nuclear scientist or whatever to explain what did happen. And I've looked into that for years, and I've forgotten about it now because it's 15 years ago when I looked into it. But I realised that I don't need to know what did happen to demonstrate what did not happen, because you need 3 planes. If you haven't got 3 planes, you can't argue that the planes were the cause of the buildings collapsing when there were 3 buildings that went down but only 2 planes. It stops at that point. But ballers completely ignore that elephant in the room, or 9/11 did act like George, and they still argue that it can do it. Well, okay, let's just say that it can. What plane caused that 3rd building to collapse? Building 7 that everyone seems to forget about. I don't believe people do forget about it. We're told that people forget about it. But Building 7 collapsed and no plane hit it. So how was that explained?
Well, that's true. Building 7, and it was just a small office fire on like a floor or 2. There was no reason for that massive building to be brought down in the manner that it was brought down. It wasn't like it was in imminent danger of collapse or anything. You know, it was just a small office fire. And also, when you go into the other facts surrounding it, which was the fact that the day before 9/11, somebody stood up here to Congress and said, hey, guess what, guys? We've got a black hole here. We've got X number of trillions of dollars that's gone missing. It's gone missing, and we've got all the files though. We've got all the information. We've got all the paperwork. So what we've done is we've shipped it all off to the Pentagon, right? And it's all going to the Pentagon. So these trillions of dollars, we will find them. We'll find where it's gone, and we'll hold our hand up and we'll get this money, and we'll find out who's been skimming off the top, and we'll get a hold of that. But in the meantime, we're going to send it to the Pentagon for safekeeping. So the next day, it's sent off to the Pentagon. Well, that day it's sent off to the Pentagon. It's in this wing of the Pentagon where it's completely safe. Yeah, completely safe until a plane, with no evidence of a plane actually hitting it, actually flies into the Pentagon, hits the wing where these documents are being stored, right, and completely obliterates it and blows everything to shit. Everything gets blown into smithereens. The trillions of dollars that have there's been this black hole, all the critical information, all the data, all the evidence in that one small wing just so happens to be where the plane the terrorists were flying happens to have struck and destroy all the evidence.
What's another big red flag is that there was a lovely plane-shaped hole in the side of the buildings where the planes are supposed to have gone into the side of the building, almost like Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote style, where he goes through something and it leaves like the shape of him as he's gone through it.
Yeah.
On the Pentagon, there was a missile-shaped hole that didn't have wings. And it's like, do you really expect us to believe that that was a fucking plane? If you're telling us that 9/11 buildings were a plane and there's a nice plane outline shape to the building, where's the fucking plane outline shape on that? And where's the rest of the plane? Where's the seats and the fragments of luggage and shit, the suitcases and there's always a shoe somewhere, right? Where's the shoe, right? Where is all that on the Pentagon? You've got this big, massive, round hole with no wings on it. Yet you've got plane-shaped holes on 9/11 on the towers. Don't think so.
Yeah, and the fact that these planes actually got absorbed by the buildings. I mean, when they struck them, the World Trade Center, they got absorbed. These wings, these aluminium wings that are fairly light, very, you couldn't fly them into a structure like that that's made of concrete and iron, the way this building was designed. And it make a perfect imprint of the plane, and it just get absorbed into the plane and the whole into the building, and the whole building absorbs it, sucks it in, and it's so preposterous. It's unbelievable. It is hilarious to think about it, but also it's very sad that people still defend this idea that this was a real thing, that this actually happened the way they said it did. Sure, the buildings fell and people did die. I mean, I actually did see. You can't deny that people died. Pete Shea says that people didn't die, but they bloody well did. People jumped off that building.
Pete Shea, I don't agree with virtually anything Pete Shea says, but I think what he means when he says people didn't die in 9/11, I think what he means is that the buildings were pretty much empty because they were condemned because they had asbestos in the buildings, and they were decommissioning the buildings, and that's why they were not as full as what we were told. Right. Yes, the buildings did collapse, and yes, the buildings did collapse and kill people as they collapsed, but the buildings weren't full. Half the buildings were empty, or the building was half empty. That's what I think he means when he says that.
Oh, right, okay. Because when I hear that and I'm thinking, I instantly throw up in my mouth because I think I actually saw people jumping off. I mean, there's no way that people didn't fall and die. Firefighters did lose their lives in there. It's bloody obvious. You can see the
aftermath.
Immediate. Of course there was. Hundreds.
You just need to, if you're unsure about 9/11, look at the Pinocchio's nose footage. Just Google the term Pinocchio's nose 9/11, and you'll see a plane go through one side of the building,
come out the other. Yeah.
When you see how they did it, you realise that whatever went on that day, it clearly is not what we're being told, and that in itself just means that there should be a revolt. But it also demonstrates how stupid people. If there's an official story, you will just get the people that I don't know why they do it, but they defend the system for some reason, and it's just ridiculous. I mean, I was listening to Nathan's premiere today, and he was talking about how do you know? I can't. Not Seligman. It was what's his fucking name? It's on the tip of my tongue. There was the experiment where the prisoners are taking on the roles of either inmates or prison guards, and they conformed to the role that they were in, and they were beating each other up and doing the role that they were in, and they were conforming to that. It was the one where they were given electric shocks. Each time they got a wrong question, they were given electric shocks. Do you know? I can't. It's too late. I can't remember the guy's name now. But anyway, he was talking about that, and Nathan was questioning the validity of that particular thing because it was set up. But there's a subsequent study that was done called the Hoffman experiment, where he took the same view that Nathan did, which was basically, is this real world or was it set up? Now, what he did was Hoffman basically said, let's test what. Do you know? I can't remember what the guy's name is now. Somebody in chat will say it. He said, let's test it real world and let's see whether there are actual people that will obey authority when they know that they shouldn't do it. So he picked a hospital. And he got 22 subjects that were nurses, and they knew the guidelines that said that you can't administer certain things, right, in certain doses because it'll probably kill them. And what they did was they got real doctors, but that were not previously known to the nurses. So there wasn't any rapport, there wasn't any trust, there was just purely the authority. And the doctor told them to administer, just for example's sake, instead of 10 milligrams of substance A, it was 20 milligrams. And it was directly against the guidelines. And they were doing it to see whether or not the nurses would follow the instructions that they were given, regardless of the guidelines, or would they stand back and say, hang on a sec. And of the 22 nurses that were tested, 21 of them basically started to administer the drug, and they were stopped because it was bad. Now, the point is that it was against the regulations. Anyway, Milgram explained. So the point is obedience to authority, actual authority or perceived authority, or the state, it seems, is a thing. Now, if the Milgram experiment allowed people to be electrocuted because they were told to do it, and the Hoffman experiment demonstrates that real-world nurses will overdose patients against guidelines because on the say-so of a doctor and obey that authority, regardless of the guidelines saying not to do it. How difficult is it for you to conceptualize people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Brian Cox telling people that the Earth's a ball when it really isn't a ball, and people will just lap it up and say, well, they say it's okay, so I'm just going to parrot that and just obey that authority, regardless of the reality that there is no evidence that we're on a ball. So if the Milgram experiment shows that people will obey, and the Hoffman experiment shows that they will obey in defiance of laws or regulations or guidelines or whatever it was that said do not, then if you have scientists, pseudoscientists, that claim that we're on a ball, even though the science doesn't support them, there are morons like George Netanyahu that will follow it anyway because the apparent authority, Neil deGrasse Tyson or otherwise, tells them it's true, even though there's zero evidence to prove that it is actually the case.
I just want to shout out a warrior in chat, Chris Berry. So he was the guy last night that was actually defending 9/11, the truthful 9/11, may I add, realities and facts against people like George Netanyahu. So Chris Berry in the chat. I did actually listen to it last night, and I listened to your arguments. They were very on point, and those knob jocks. I mean, I was getting so frustrated in the chat. I mean, I didn't say anything for the longest point. I listened to about an hour of it, and then I just exploded in chat and then left because it was just like, I can't listen to this anymore. These guys have to be paid operatives to believe that. They can't have this information and deny it. It's overwhelming.
Think about it. They've got to be. George has to be paid, right? He has to be, because why on earth would you go to the Flat Earth Conference, right? In a blasé defiant act of arrogance, sit there as though you're some kind of King Dick, even though you're only about 5'4" in height, but act as though you are some kind of, like, I don't know what he was acting like, but it was just bizarre. Can you imagine, right? If there was a Ball Earth Conference and you or I decided that we were going to go. I mean, you'd never. Why would you? Why would you go somewhere where you know that you're not wanted, right? But in our case, we'd probably get twatted. Let's be honest. There would be somebody there that didn't like me and that would want to have a go at me. And do you know what? Bring it on. But the point is, you would get. Me and you would be at risk of being battered by 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever. There is a real risk of violence. Yet George knows that he's not going to be attacked because none of us are aggressive or violent. And even if we're pushed, we're still not really going to start fighting unless we have to, because we're only questioning the narrative. We're not saying that the Earth. Whatever. The point is, we would be in jeopardy, or we would be at risk of actually getting our heads kicked in. So, what would be the motive for the trolls to turn up at the Flat Earth Conference? Because they are. What is the reason? There is no logical reason for being there. They have to be getting paid.
The buildings as well. I mean, going back to the 9/11 buildings, those 2 twin towers. The reason they were able to take those building downs in the way that they did, the reason they fell in their own footprint, was because for the prior months leading up to that, people had been entering the building at night time to do repair work, apparently, on the escalators. So they'd been allowed access to these shafts, and they were the central columns of both of these buildings. and they'd been going in for at least a couple of months before the buildings came down. And they found out that these were the points. A lot of this was the strongest points of the building, so they had access there to be able to weaken the structure all the way up. Put these explosives in that were able to take the building down. But on the external ones, they had this nanothermite that they were able to use as well, which is why you saw the nanothermite splittering off. And
they used that to weaken the overall structure. It didn't pull it down. It did weaken it, and it allowed it to collapse, but it didn't pull it down. But if you look at the best explanation that I've come across, a lot of people claim Judy Woods, right? I don't accept their explanation for what went on, because she's using the explanation of weapons that may or may not even exist to explain what brought these buildings down. It may have happened. It's possible. It's not the most persuasive argument for me. If you look up a guy called Dmitry Kalazov, Khalezov, Dmitry Kalazov, he did a 4-hour documentary on it, and he explained it in extreme detail, and he showed it with like lots of explanation with support and evidence to support his assertion that there was underground, he calls them mini nukes, but they were massive explosions that effectively the towers acted as chimneys. So when smoke comes out the top of a chimney, the sonic blast that was created by the explosion basically ricocheted up the insides of the building, and that was basically what pulled them all down. That's the explanation I've come across to explain the mechanics of why the buildings actually came down. But what we do, whatever the reason is, and if you don't accept Kalazov, that's fine. We can all agree that you need at least 3 planes to pull down 3 buildings, right? And they only had 2 planes, and 3 buildings fell. So
yeah, that's one thing. But the simple fact is that if you've ever, you've seen house fires, right? So you've seen a house fire, and you know that the house fire burns out, right? And it only gets up to about 1,000 degrees, 1,200 degrees, something like that, from sort of like typical household stuff inside the house. What they found was that weeks and weeks and weeks after they were still removing this rubble, they found molten steel. Steel.
Thermite.
Yeah, still under the ground, under these buildings.
Chris Berry's asking, can he join for a bit? Bring him on, let's hear what he says, because I didn't see last night's show, but blowing the dust off these files in my mind of like 15 years old now, I'd still like to hear what the current position is, because I'm about 15 years out of date now, but let's hear what Chris says, because I do want to hear stuff, how this conversation's moved on.
Okay, so I am adding him right now, so he's added to the call. Let's see if he picks up.
Nathan looks like he's in a bullish mood again tonight. Picking on Paige.
Hello, Chris. Nice to see you.
Hello. Hey, how are you doing?
Great stuff last night. You know, you took on those paid operatives for sure, and you gave them hell for hours. Well done.
Yeah, well, I was on there for like an hour and a half, and I had to leave, cook dinner and stuff for my family. But then I came back. But either way, you know, it's just so disappointing, because with all the evidence, all the years since, you know, after last night, I really have to use a new word for these people, and it's just, honestly, it's just psychopath. Because to me, a psychopath is someone who does look at the evidence and does do the research, and then still comes to the wrong conclusion. And someone like Toady UK, who last night, I was really disappointed in Toady. He made tons of false claims. I corrected him and gave links to correct his claims, and then towards the end, he was saying things like, I really think Chris is only in it to get like points, like to be right, which is beyond insane. I mean, so now, because I happen to be right and he was wrong, I'm only in it for the points, right? Like, what the hell?
To answer Neo the One, why did Ranty wake up to this 18 years later? I didn't actually. 9/11 was what actually woke me up in around about 2008, 2009. It took a few years because, you know, I knew there was something wrong when I saw those buildings fall. I watched it live. I was flabbergasted with what actually was going on. I thought it was the start of World War III. And I actually watched this, and I was beyond. I had this sort of like feeling that something wasn't right, but I couldn't put my finger on it, but I just believed it. because I was being told it, and it was everywhere at the time. It was like in every newspaper, every TV channel. They were all saying the same thing. It was like a mass brainwash that went on for about 2 months afterwards. You couldn't escape it. It was the only thing we were told. And back then, I don't even think I had the internet. Or if I did have the internet, it was dial-up. And it was in its infancy back then. It wasn't, I wasn't really tech minded. So it took until about 2008, 2009, when I actually started to inquire about stuff, things that was interesting me, things like chemtrails. I got onto 9/11, and I was hooked. Once I'd watched all the 9/11 stuff, then I led into other stuff and other stuff that brought me to Flat Earth. So I haven't just found 9/11. 9/11 was what woke up the world, I think. And I'll be quite honest, I think every truther that's out there or 90% of truthers out there will believe that 9/11 didn't happen the way it did. And that's just how I feel. I mean, what about you, Chris? I mean, how did you wake up?
Yeah, it was 9/11, and I was in college. This was around 2005, 2006. And other than, of course, the casual conspiracy theory of like, did we go to the moon or Bigfoot, those kind of things, JFK, I wasn't into conspiracies at the time. I was into drinking and, hooking up with girls and those kind of things that like a 2-year-old kid does at the time, or whatever, however old I was. But I came across a video, much like I did with Flat Earth, that said USA did 9/11 or something like that, right? Like it was a really incendiary title. And I was like, what the hell? Like, that's bullcrap. So again, just like Flat Earth, I watched the video, and this was like even before Loose Change, and that's how long ago this was. Now, I mean, it was right around the same time. So I watched this first video, and it was like blew me away because, of course, even back then the evidence was overwhelming. Then I came on to Loose Change, came on to Alex Jones. I forget. There's so many videos back then that they didn't censor. But that's how I started my journey of 9/11. I did a radio show in 2007 in Houston on a public access radio that goes out to about 1 million people. On 9/11, I had a guest and everything. A guy who was in New York. He worked in the Twin Towers. He was 100% convinced it was an inside job. He had been fired. He worked for one of these big, like, you hear all these names like Marsh & McLennan and all these other, giant corporations that had people on the inside who at least knew about it to a certain degree. And he had gotten fired, and he was like on his way to the towers to get, his last paycheck or his box of stuff or whatever it was. And he was running late because he didn't care, because he had gotten fired, and he had uncovered some monetary, call it shenanigans, with his company, and they found out and they fired him. And he was on his way driving to 9/11, and he drove a Porsche and everything. I've seen pictures of him, and he was taking his time because you're right, he didn't care anymore. And on his way is when the towers got hit, and he believes that he would have been killed if he had gone there, because he was going to go up into the towers and be there. But basically, long story short, yeah, it was 9/11 that got me. Sorry, I do want to say, and I have to apologize. I'm using your platform because last night was total bullcrap. So
don't worry about it. I mean, I had your back immediately. I listened to that last night, and that right. Listen, I've allowed people like George Netanyahu to come on this channel and tell us about Coriolis 3 separate times and want a 4th bite of the cherry, yeah, because they weren't able to convince anybody of the bullshit, right? So I've taken heat from a lot of flat earthers for allowing George Netanyahu a platform and a voice, because I believed that he could actually provide something to this community, and I thought he was in this for the truth. I listened last night to that hangout on Sean G's channel, and that just completely proved to me that he is an absolute mainstream apologist. That's all he is. He will follow the narrative of the mainstream no matter what evidence is staring you in the face. And you said it quite rightly last night. There's more evidence for 9/11 than there is for the flat earth, right? And it's bloody obvious. You cannot be a reasonable human being with a reasonable logical brain to understand that there is not just a small amount of evidence, but it's overwhelming evidence that 9/11 was an inside job and didn't happen the way that they told us it did. right? There's overwhelming evidence. And for those people to stand up and defend it as vehemently as they did and ridicule you and take the piss out of you, it made me so mad that I'd been hoodwinked by this cunt, George Netanyahu, because that's what he is. Because if this is how he's going to behave over something as obvious as that, there's no way he's going to be able to just be honest and truthful and reasonable about flat Earth. You know, I'm looking for people in this debate that can come on and be honest and open and reasonable and bring some stuff to the table. But he's just Tony, go ahead, take it off me, because I'm going to say stuff I don't want to say.
Let me say two things. They say that flat Earth's a psyop, right? If you just go to a definition for psyop, I'll read what one says. Operations to convey selected information, not all information, not contradictory information, selected information and indicators to audiences to influence their emotions, motives, and objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of governments, organizations, groups, and individuals, right? So basically, if flat Earth's a science and we're being given selected information, like all obstructions at the horizon are caused by curvature, nothing to do with anything optical or whatever, what's psyop? Because we're saying, hang on a sec, this doesn't make sense. Same for 9/11. We were given selected information about what was supposed to have happened. Now, which is the psyop? People questioning the official narrative, or the people that are pushing the official narrative and then claim, basically gaslighting everybody, trying to make them think that they're stupid. Or is it really the flat earthers or the 9/11 skeptics saying, hang on a second, you need planes, you've not got enough planes, you need 3 planes for 3 buildings. It's not a psyop, question authority, but that's what they tell you it is. And it's completely the opposite, that we're being gaslit. So if it's not on 9/11, it's on that. My other point was, Chris, I didn't see the show last night on Sean G's channel. I don't watch anything on Sean G. He's a gravity pusher. But I wanted that I saw your comment in chat. You said that the stuff weakened the building and then the explosives made it collapse. Do you agree that Judy Woods is probably not the explanation that's for why the buildings fell?
No, yeah, I don't believe Judy Wood at all.
Do you think that it is Dmitry Kalazov's explanation?
Sorry, I heard you mention him, but I was halfway listening. What was his?
Well, he says that there was below ground explosions that caused the buildings to fall into a hole that was then created in the ground. I'm not saying it's absolutely true. I'm just saying that lends more, because where's all the steel? I mean, I know there was a lot of steel on the surface, but there was a lot of steel missing. And I remember when I looked into this phrase dustification that Judy Woods coined, and it does. There is evidence that supports dustification, right? But the dustification was explained away by weapons, right? And I actually think it was done by thermonukes rather than weapons, because I accept Dmitry Kalazov.
Someone's got the mic open. We've got an echo.
Oh, that'll be me. Hang on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say I hear a bad echo.
Sorry, that'll be me. Hang on. Yeah, but just tell me about Kalazov and Judy Wood or whatever.
Say it again.
Just tell me what you think about Judy Wood, Kalazov.
Okay, so Judy. So
hold on. We've got an echo. Right, go ahead. Speak again, Chris.
Yeah. So let me just
state
this. Yeah, let me state this for the record. I've researched 9/11 since 2006. I've never stopped. That's how I know when people like Toady and George and others and big dumbass make false accusations. I mean, they were like last night, they were like, oh, you've had time to Google all this. Like, I didn't Google it and then make statements. I made statements and then Googled to give you links because you guys are little bitches. So when it comes to 9/11, I would debate anybody, anytime, anywhere on the physics of it and the science of it and those kind of things. So I am being kind of arrogant, but that's just because I know my 9/11 facts. So first of all, to go back, I'll answer your question, Anthony, in about 30 seconds. I do have to say this. For example, last night, Ranty would have heard me talk about Toady, and Toady said that the buildings collapsed because of the pancake theory. False. The pancake theory hasn't been the theory as to why. It's not even the official theory anymore, and it hasn't been for about 10 years. So that was my whole point, and that's when he got mad at me because I corrected him. Then he kept saying I was trying to point score and all this stuff, and apparently if being correct and knowing your stuff is keeping score, then that's, I don't have any argument for that because I just know my facts. To answer your question, Judy Wood, I don't believe in that theory. There's no need for that theory because conventional demolition will do what we saw. So the other guy, I don't know what you said his name was. That theory is correct in a sense. There's videos across the Hudson Bay. I believe that's the right bay, Hudson Bay, right there in New York. From New Jersey to New York, there's videos of a guy. I can't remember his name, but they're all over YouTube. They used to be, and they've probably taken them off with all the censorship. But anyways, there's a guy who has a video camera pointed to the Twin Towers after they were hit. For the entire 45 minutes to an hour before they collapsed, you hear bombs going off. You see smoke and dust coming up from the base of the towers. So the theory is those buildings were so overbuilt to withstand. They could have withstood multiple airplane impacts, and that's from the designer Frank. His name is Frank D. Martini. He's on video saying that he believed they could take multiple jetliner impacts. First of all, so they overbuilt those buildings to, a nuclear blast wouldn't have taken the whole thing down, right? You have to take it down piece by piece. So the theory is, you blow up the inside just enough. You use the thermite charges to cut the steel into little pieces, right, little slices, and then you use bigger type explosives to blow it apart. But it's without a doubt they had to blow up the sub basements. Those basements went down, like, I want to say 5 or 6 stories, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 4. It's somewhere right around there, like 4 to 6 stories sub basement. And by the way, the cores went all the way down to the sub basement, so they had to blow up the bottoms, like you're saying. So yeah, that guy is more correct in his theory. But absolutely, you don't need mini nukes or nuclear weapons to do what they did. You take the super thermite to cut the steel, and then you use some sort of either super thermite still or some other explosive to blow those buildings apart like they did.
Yeah, I think that am I echoing, by the way? I'm not sure if I am or not, but I think that when you realise that building was weakened, and I don't know if you saw the clip of the firemen that were inside the building, but I think they were killed after the event, but there was recording of them making comments. No, actually, they survived. It was recorded after the event, but it was recorded contemporaneous. It wasn't recorded afterwards. It was contemporaneously recorded, which is important. One of the Italian or Mexican sounding guys said, no, not explosion, explosions, boom, 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 and he put his hand in like a stacking order, and that I found really persuasive evidence, because he was describing what felt like a subway train passing underneath them, and Kalazov said that's the detonation, the main explosion, and then he said the explosions above the building, which were like boom, 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 boom. And when he described that in conjunction with the subway train passing underneath him, the explosion underneath, funneling, tend to the mechanism actually did it. But overall, if you deny that kind of evidence, you've got to be some kind of special to be able to.
I was going to say it's just me.
No, it's Tony keeps cutting out. I think he's too far away from the mic.
Sorry, I'm a bit closer. It should be okay. But anyway, the evidence is overwhelming that the official story is bunk. But it's the same argument for flat Earth. We do not need to explain what does happen on a flat plane to point out how it can't possibly be the case on a ball. So it's the same arguments for 9/11. We don't need to explain what did happen to point out that it couldn't have happened, because you need 3 planes, right? They only had 2. I mean, that in itself kills it for me. You don't even have to go any further than that for me. I mean, it's good to go into it because it's interesting to stand up. But the reality is, like, it's the same argument for both topics. We do not need to explain what the Earth is to a point that you can't have out some membrane or whatever. I mean, it's a very interesting story. So it's the same. I'm still here.
Yeah, you're still there.
Are you still there, Chris?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I was listening. I was typing to Toady. Toady said, I'm playing with someone who is hurt by my comments, referring to myself. I am fair and happy to have a decent discussion, but you need to bring an argument. Why not? See, last night I just roasted him over this because he just didn't know what he was talking about. None of them did. Sean G, including Sean G, and especially Sean G. George Nat, like they have the most retarded questions. Things like, why would they blow the building up from the top down? That's not how controlled demolitions work, right? And I'm like, guys, use some common freaking sense. If you're going to implode a building, but you don't want people to know about it, like you're going to change things up. You're not going to make it look like a traditional controlled demolition, right? Like they're so brainwashed that they can't even think outside the box long enough to understand why you would do certain things the way, that you would do them if it was a conspiracy. Like that's how insane they are.
The thing is with Sean G, I mean, I might be wrong with that when I guess this, but I don't know how old he is, but I guess he's probably 10 years or so younger than us. He would have been in puberty, not even in puberty by the time 9/11 happened, if he was even a teenager at all. So he was too young to even understand what was going on back then. Even though I watched it live, I had no reason to question it at the time when I watched it, because it to me looked like a movie. It looked like something that you'd see in a cinema. But I had no reason to question it because I kind of accepted the reality I was presented with. And then Zeitgeist, or people have seen that and ridicule it or whatever. But Zeitgeist pulls apart the official story. It doesn't say what did happen. It just pulls apart what couldn't have happened. And Zeitgeist's explanation for why it's impossible is brilliant. But no one likes Zeitgeist because reasons. But it's a really good. If you haven't seen Zeitgeist, watch that part. It's the middle section. It's really good.
Just, I just want to say something about going back to a bit of Earth curvature here. We'll get back onto 9/11, I promise, in a minute. But Ian Adams has just put in the chat, would Ruhif put his head inside the inferior Mirage and let somebody shoot at it with a sniper rifle? So, so to clarify that,
he could rely on Coriolis to avoid the bullet making an impact on his head, couldn't he?
So to clarify that, wait, go on.
I was just gonna say that's funny because I actually thought of that last night when you were, or one of these days that last day or two you were talking with Ruhif, who you destroyed, by the way. In that video. So look, this video you're about to play, I'll cue it up for you. We've destroyed the ball, quote unquote, model with optics, right? Mm-hmm. So for 500 years they'd say, "Oh, I see a ship going over the curve, therefore the Earth is round." Well, none of us knew any better to answer that question. Like we had our own theories of like part of its perspective, part of its angle of attack, right? Yeah, but atmosphere probably, in my opinion, is the biggest thing we kind of left out for so long and didn't really get. Now with videos like this you're about to show and videos you've done and Travis and others, we know without a doubt that I'll just say the combination, I'm not going to say it's one or the other, the combination of refraction and angle and perspective and shoaling and all these things is absolutely without a doubt 100% the cause of why things disappear in the distance.
Yeah.
So the claim by Ian, well, the challenge by Ian actually is obviously for Ruhif to put his head inside the inferior Mirage and have someone shoot at it with a sniper rifle. So this lake is just a few hundred meters across, and already we're getting this massive inferior Mirage where this lady's hand is completely absorbed into this inferior Mirage already. The boat that she's handing you can't see, and she's placing it into the water at some point and it's going to drive off. So if Ruhif wants to place his head inside this inferior Mirage zone here where you can no longer make it out, would he be willing to have somebody shoot a sniper rifle at it? So yeah, I mean, Ian Adams, I mean, it's an interesting concept, an interesting experiment. We know how the Globers are always hankering for a good experiment to test this theory. So I don't see a problem with this. But
one look at how still that lake is in terms of there are no apparent waves. If there were,
it's not even. Sorry, it's gonna say it's not even a lake; it's a pond. That's how small it is that they're getting this effect over. Go ahead.
Yeah, but my point is that if there's no waves, I mean, if there were waves because it was wind, let's say there was a bit of wind that day and it was causing a little bit of a ripple, I wonder how much of a ripple it would need before, if the angle's that narrow and you're that low to the ground, how much of a wave would you need before you apparently get curvature?
Just the thought, though, that somebody would actually test this. Well, Mark Sargent's actually said that if you will put him in a vacuum chamber, you know, with the, or what was it he said? With a vacuum chamber, would somebody would be willing to go in a vacuum chamber? Is it?
No, it was Scott Veach was challenged because his dad was an astronaut, so he should be able to do this. Scott Veach was challenged to get a NASA astronaut suit, go into the vacuum chamber first, and if he came out alive, Mark Sargent would then go in afterwards. And obviously that never happened, but he could sort that, and you know, he's sort of son, daddy's an astronaut, so it's definitely in the realms of possibility, but it's never happened. Wonder why.
Lewis Hackett's in the chat. He says, "Yeah, that's not curvature, Auntie." Thank you. I'm glad that you actually came and said that, because you used to come on the Flat Earth debates a couple of years ago and tell us that inferior mirage was Earth curvature. In fact, you were quite dogmatic about it. I remember many a debate where yourself and Tony would get into this.
You would argue that because it's obstructed, then it must be Earth curve, and it's like, yeah, it's obstructed, but it's not being obstructed by Earth curve.
So,
I mean, you still have people like Brenda, who I swear to God, about a week ago, said that refraction can't hide things from the bottom. Like, where'd the bottom go, guys? Where'd the bottom go? When you're looking at a clear, like, inferior mirage or whatever. I mean, you still have people like Brenda and others that denied this. It's not even, it's a fact.
Yeah.
And do you know something? It was really tough getting this information out in the beginning, because nobody wanted to go near it, because, you know, by all accounts and purposes, even 3 years ago, we discussed a video at the start of this that Tony filmed that showed the bottom of the boat that was invisible. You know, you couldn't see it because the sky was repeating down on it, a bit like this image here, where you've got the human and the embankment miraging down on the water, and it was exactly the same as that. And Tony couldn't understand it, and he only got it this evening. Yeah.
It's not that I only got it. It's when the background. Well, it was when somebody had used, when you'd done the cargo boat and demonstrated it with a cargo boat. That was when, for me, the penny dropped. I was like, right, I've seen a cargo boat like that. It stuck in my mind for 3 years, and I couldn't explain it. And it was just when you did it, and I was like, oh my god, that explains that boat. And obviously that's where it came from. And we hadn't rehearsed that. It was done live on the fly, and it was just done because I realised that would probably work with my video, and if it did, then it explains where the boat is. And what I first thought was curve actually wasn't curve at all. It was an optical effect called mirage, but I didn't spot it at the time because it was too new.
We have a comment from Lewis Hackett, who says, quote unquote, "At no point did I say a mirage was curve."
No, you said it was obstruction, and then you'd say, why can't we see the bottom? Where's the bottom of the boat or whatever? And we're like, well, we don't really know what's going on there, but it's definitely not Earth curve causing it because it's clearly shimmering. And you just wouldn't accept it, Lewis. You're just one of those people that will push the official narrative no matter what.
What's interesting here is that it seems that we've had Ruhif, we've had the Rumpus, we've now got Lewis Hackett on, not only on video, but here right now, saying that the inferior mirage isn't curve. Whereas, like, we're saying that 2 or 3 years ago, they were saying that it was.
So the other thing I want to point out is so not only do some ballers such as Brendan not believe it's even possible to hide the bottom due to the refraction, some ballers still believe that the refraction point only goes up so far as like the water line, like that the inferior mirage is simply the water reflecting, and they don't believe the air itself is part of the mirage. Right, so this video, I mean, there's so much evidence out there. Your videos, and this video in particular, disprove that, because the mirage line is clearly higher than, almost as tall as the whole boat, which is on the flat water, right? So it's not that, up to a certain point, yeah, the water will reflect the light, and that's kind of what the inferior mirage is, where the reflection is. But past that point, 5 miles, 6 miles out, no, it could be the water part of it, but it's definitely the air that's obstructing the actual boats, that wave of refraction. So let's not, let's make sure that's understood too, that the reason it is a physical obstruction. Okay, it's atmosphere, it's not curve.
Yeah, but don't forget though, there's a reflection that is the boat is sat behind or on top of in that example. How many times have we seen the boat behind the mirroring bit, and Rancy's argued it loads, and it's like, it's clearly mirrored. There's something underneath the thing that we're looking at, and it is being mirrored, and it is blocking what we're looking at. It's obvious, right? But we can't really prove it. It's just an obvious explanation, but we can't prove it. But now it's like, actually, yeah, that is proof, because it does prove that the boat is not actually on top of or whatever mirage. It's just, the ballers just deny everything. I'm that tired of ballers. I just don't have any time for them anymore.
I had a year of abuse, not only from the Globers, but from quite a lot of flat earthers that didn't believe this effect was real. I mean, when I was putting out footage like the top image that I'm displaying right now, the top image, which was showing absolute obstruction, it was known back then to most flat earthers, at least, because they'd been told it so often by the Globers that this inferior mirage was where the Earth curve was, that they didn't want to touch this. They did not want to know this effect. They wanted to stay clear from it. So it's only through pushing through those cognitive biases of what they had indoctrinated us to believe was Earth curve, to actually prove that it isn't. And it was such a long, hard slog. And that's why, Lewis Hackett in the chat right now that says that he didn't believe this, and he never trolled us about this, saying that this inferior mirage was where Earth curve was, is why, it kind of pisses me off, because I was the one that was suffering at those guys' hands, that were laughing at me for this, that were taking the piss, that were, that it caused a lot of trouble for me personally, to actually go through this, to get this data out and eventually have it accepted by not just the flat earthers, but the Globers too. So it was for him to come in and then deny it and say that he never said this, kind of takes the piss, really. Hold your hands up, admit it, and say you got it fucking wrong, because I had to put up with your shit for over a year for this.
Yeah, I know, but Ranty, you just said the key word then. It was a lot of shit for you. Everybody in this conversation that's been in it for more than 2 or 3 months realise that when ballers claim that Ranty proves globe, Ranty isn't proving globe, because everything that they say, I mean, look at dickhead in chat now, Blue Marble Science, still got that video gas pressure without a container, yet he's got a big fucking pipe, and he ignores that that's the container that we say that you can't have to have gas pressure, and he thinks he lies to people about telling people that it's an open container. Yeah, that doesn't matter. The point is that you have a container and you are getting the gas pressure because of it. Because if you didn't have the pipe, then you wouldn't have a container and you could not have that pressure that you are recording with your device at the bottom. But he's still got the video up. And I'm like, how can you have the gall to come in this chat and sit there and say things like, I'll just quote what he's just put, he's thought, really sloppy, I'd say you're tired of getting your butt kicked. No, I'm just sick and tired of fucking liars like you fuckers. You should be ashamed. You are an embarrassment to humanity, but you come in here and flippantly laugh at me or Ranty or whoever, yet you've got the audacity to have a video up saying gas pressure without a container, which then some dickhead that wrote a book on gravity and debunking claims of flat earthers. I mean, what flat earthers make claims? Not many claims are floating around on our side. We're just pointing out the errors in your side's claims of gravity, for example, where this dickhead then writes a book about gravity, doesn't even mention Einstein, the current science, and cite more video for gas pressure without a container. I mean, that's just the epitome of stupidity. Yet we're the ones that are laughed at. It's just, you are embarrassing to science. I don't even know what to do here.
So going back to 9/11, anything else there to add, Chris?
Not really. I will say I have a video on my channel called 9/11 Truth Scientifically Vindicated, and yes, I did use the term scientifically more as a trigger than as in a colloquial term than the actual experiment and hypothesis and all that. But basically, that video, 13 minutes long, covers a lot of topics. And so if anyone, I mean, again, look, I know most of the people that are listening to this, if they're your followers, probably don't believe in the official story. If you're one of the people who think that, the government just let it happen, like they didn't really have anything to do with it, please check out that video on my channel, do other research into it if you need. But absolutely, they did. If there was a real terrorist conspiracy and they did find out about it, then they hijacked it. They hijacked it, and then they caused it to happen too. They blew up the buildings. They blew up Tower 7. There was no plane at Shanksville. There was no plane at Pentagon, in my opinion. There could have been like a drone or something maybe at the Pentagon, but there was no jetliner. That's for sure. That didn't hit the building.
It was a missile at the Pentagon. I don't believe that it was a drone. It was the hole was too big for it to be a drone.
Right. It could have been a drone. It could have been a missile. The point is, it wasn't a 747 or whatever it was jetliner. With 100 passengers and luggage and all that stuff.
Where's all the luggage and all the strewn out seats that are everywhere? There was no.
There's no seats.
There's no Shanksville plane either. You're right. There's no Shanksville plane.
No, Shanksville is the most obvious. And if you do the research, I don't have time. I don't want to hijack your channel. If you do the research, you can figure out what happened to it. They blew the plane out of the air because it was going all over the place, and the planes got the military planes or whatever got to it, and they just blew it up. And that's evidenced by eyewitness testimony saying that people saw rockets being shot at it, and it blew the plane up, and it had a stream of stuff falling out of the plane for like 2 miles, I think.
Yeah, but listen to this. So one thing that everybody forgets about that 9/11. Do you remember the Russian submarine that went down in the Caspian? Not the Caspian Sea. I can't remember where it was now. It was called the Kursk. Do you remember that?
Remind me.
It was a Russian sub that accidentally got grounded, and basically they all died. It was seamen that all died in it, Russian seamen, and the Norwegians recovered it at the request of, I think it was Putin, and they got it back out the water. But when they got it back out the water, they said that it was damaged when it got exploded. But it was actually basically its artillery was removed by basically the Americans had stole it. But if you look at when the Kursk happened, it was only 2 weeks before 9/11. And if you look at the missiles that hit the Pentagon, or if you look at the evidence to support the assertion that it was missiles, and then look at the missiles that went missing out the Kursk, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to realise that the probability that the Kursk submarine's missiles were actually used in the 9/11. Because they've got missiles, all the missiles are accounted for. They've got them all logged. They know what missiles are, so they can't really use their own missiles. They probably could, but it's more likely that they use the missiles out of the Kursk because the missiles are very distinctive and they were very non-American. They were typically Russian-looking. So just look at the correlation between the time that the Kursk went down, the missing ammunition that was stolen by somebody believed to be the Americans, and then look at the evidence supporting the assertion that it was a missile that hit the buildings, not a plane. A missile, a big fat missile that kind of resembled a plane, but nobody would pay any attention to it because it was happening that fast. No one was looking up. You don't look up. You look across because we live laterally. But look at the evidence for the missing missiles, and then what they tell us were planes, small planes. They were actually missiles, and it was probably out the Kursk.
So there was definitely a plane at and near the Pentagon, like a large aircraft. But the eyewitness testimony, again, if you do the research, the eyewitness testimony says that it didn't go into the Pentagon, of course, like it went by it, and then there's people that actually say that they saw it fly over it, and it did a flyover. So the theory is either that thing shot the missiles into it and flew over, or it was all kind of what is it, like a bait and switch, where they had to have people see the large aircraft to say, oh yeah, I saw a large aircraft, and they'll leave it at that and say, yeah, that was the plane that hit it. But there's lots of eyewitness testimony that says they saw the plane, it kind of went down, but then they saw it fly over the Pentagon. And they saw an explosion and they saw the plane fly away. That's multiple people. There's a group called Citizen Investigation Team, CIT, just Google that or YouTube that. They interviewed like 10 different people, and that's kind of what they put together. But Randy, I'll jump off. Like I said, appreciate you letting me on to kind of defend myself. Yeah, I was just being gaslit so much last night. Like, it was almost insane. I mean, I'm coming with facts and evidence and links, and you have people like Toady giving you like 12-year-old information, saying pancake collapse. I have George Natchik calling me names and cussing at me because he just can't handle the truth, I guess. Big blue, people like them.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
fucking morons, mate.
all right, guys.
No worries, mate. No worries.
I'm your 9/11 guy. If you have any questions, but Anthony, it sounds like you already know a lot, and Ranty, you do too. So.
Yeah, look at Dmitry Kalazov. It's a 4-hour hangout, but if he's put 4 hours into it, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that you could watch at least the first hour. Most of it gets explained.
Yeah.
Hour. It's well worth watching because it gives the mechanism that's. I mean, you need something big and powerful to do what happened that day, and it is an explanation that I find persuasive. Not saying it's true, but it's definitely worth considering. And even if you reject it, at least be aware of his argument and then be ready with why it's not. Because that's a conversation I would like to have. Because it's the most logical one that's out there. You do need something big and powerful to do what happened that day, whatever it was.
No, there were definitely, like I say, he's probably right for the most part. There were definitely bombs going off. You can hear bombs across like again, I believe it's Hudson Bay, in on this side, the New Jersey side. There's people who videotapes it. It's on camera, multiple cameras, multiple angles, and it's like a low level boom, right? Like a low level boom. It's not loud because it's so far away. And then of course you see smoke coming up and dust clouds and things I'm talking at the street level. So again, he's right. They had to blow out the sub basements to be able to prepare the buildings to be completely taken down. The last thing I'll say is check out AE911truth. I think it's .com, maybe it's .org now that they're a nonprofit. Architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, over 3,000 members, certified structural engineers, civil engineers, mechanical engineers, whatever, right? Computer engineers, like every engineer under the sun you'd want, and they all question without a doubt the official story.
Yeah, Chris, just before you go, I just want to bring up one that I found persuasive. The first tower that was hit was the second tower to fall. The second tower to hit was the first tower to fall. Dmitry Kalazov explains why it was that way, because normally you'd expect the first tower to be hit to be the one that falls first, because obviously
can I give you the explanation? Can you tell me if we're on the same explanation?
Underground railway.
Oh, that's not what I was going to say. Okay.
Well, could I just say as well? I heard these guys last night gaslighting you over numbers. So they said, there's only 3,000 architects and engineers that have signed up to this. And how many architects and engineers are there in the US? And they made some claims between, let's say, 100,000 and 250,000, something like that. So if we go for the big scale and we say it's like 300,000 architects and engineers in America and only 3,000 have signed up, that's 1 in 100, yeah? And you let them get away with that because what you did was you allowed them to get away with it because it's the actual reported facts, let's say, 1 in 100. But that's that have actually signed up to this. And there's a big difference to believing that something is wrong and actually putting your head on the block and saying, do you know what? American government, you killed your own people and you sent them into a war. Yeah? And you stole all that money and you brought those buildings down. There's a big difference between those people that are actually willing to sign up to that and put the head on the block and those that actually believe it. So
that's right.
Yeah, you let them get away with that because you should have been all over that and said, what, do you think that every single architect and engineer that believes it is just going to sign that just because they're going to sign it? Yeah,
right.
Many ways to skin a cat, though, Ranty. Just because he let that one go doesn't mean that he hasn't skinned the cat in other ways, and I'm pretty sure he will have done.
No, but I'm glad that I'm hoping that if you understand where I'm coming from there, you'll have that in mind for the next time they try to bring that bullshit up.
So okay, two things. I did make a mention of that. I did say that they could put their careers on the line and those kind of things and be mocked and stuff. So I did say something like that. And of course the other thing you have to remember, it was like 1 versus 10 people. I was the only one kind of arguing for that side. So as you guys know, it's really hard to debate and argue when you've got question after question after question from 3 and 4 different people. So, but I hear what you're saying.
And do you have anything for Tony?
Anything for him?
Yeah, he posed a question to you just before mine, and
Yeah, I said about the railway line underneath was the reason why building 1 fell second. What was your
Oh,
explanation?
that's fair. Oh, my answer would be the way that it blew up initially. Either so again, whether you believe planes hit or not, I'm agnostic on that. I could go either way. But the way that the plane or the bomb went off in the second building, it hit more on the side of the building, and it carved out the side. So if you notice, just before the building's going to collapse, it's basically going to topple over. So they couldn't have that building topple over before, right, the buildings crash, because then there would be no, call it pile driver, there would be no official explanation pile driver to collapse it. So that's kind of where I was going with it.
Well, let me just respond to that by asking you to look at Kalazov's explanation for why it's the railway lines underneath, and when you see why it's the railway lines, then that makes what you're saying makes logical sense. But there's an alternative explanation that also makes logical sense, and it's a case of weighing up the two logical explanations and just seeing what you think is the one that makes the most sense.
Right. No, fair enough. I'll check him out. All right, guys, I got to go. Appreciate it, Ranty and Anthony. I'll
no
talk to you
worries.
guys later.
See you later.
Peace.
Yeah, I've just got on screen a video that of a live stream that I actually did just before this one. So it was actually Tony that asked me to go live and do this stream because of when I was actually on this stream. So if when I round up in a minute or two, you guys want to go back and watch this video, I've titled it "Wally Screws Up Yet Again and Tries to Hoodwink His Audience." So if you'd like to go and watch that, it's only a 20-minute live stream that I did right before this one. And we've already had a comment from my regular troll, ZZ Curve, who just loves to leave comments. Runty, you are not smart enough for this game. Stick to what you do best. I may need my hall and stairs painting. Are you free? Yes, that's right. I am a painter and decorator. But I tell you what, your fella here, Wally, he got utterly destroyed in this actual live stream right now. So in the previous one. So if you guys want to go and watch that, and give it a thumbs up as well. We've got 25 to 9. Be nice to see some activity on that. Tony, is there anything you want to say before we go?
Blue Marble Science is a massive, massive, massive penis.
Has a or is a?
It is a massive, massive, massive penis.
Right, okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Right, well, on that note, I think I'm going to round up. So, are you going live tomorrow, Tony, at any time?
Nah, I'm going to drop. I'm going to go to bed, mate. It's late.
Yeah, what time is it now? It's 2:30 in the morning, yeah. So, right, guys. So, yeah, we're going to round up. That's Sleeping Warrior, in case you haven't subscribed to his channel. He's not far behind me on subscribers, and he's still trying to catch. So, Sleeping Warrior, if you want to find his channel. Chris Berry, who was on talking about 9/11 just before, and myself, Ranty Flat Earth. And I'll see you all in the next one.